Happy Hump Day, everybody! Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on a Wednesday. From now until 2 o'clock, we will do our best to educate, entertain, and edify all of you out there listening. Always love being here with you on Utah's #1 sports talk, on your home of the Utes. We march closer and closer to the beginning of college football season, and most importantly, closer to Utah's debut on a Thursday night at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Camp begins in 5 days. Next Monday, we will be having conversations with players and coaches. As far as we know, as of now, we will not be able to watch practice, but they left a little caveat in the announcement that practice is closed unless otherwise noted. So my hope is that there will be some otherwise noted type of days. With that in mind, we have to rely on the testimony of players and coaches to talk about who's really excelling, who's climbing the depth chart, who's making some noise in practice, who's got good reps, who's winning one-on-one battles, right? And everyone's excited right now. They'll be excited next week. They'll start to lose some of that excitement and enthusiasm about 2 days into week 2. That's when the grind has really set in a little bit for camp. And then when game prep starts again, when install starts again, and the schedule goes more to the season doldrums, that's when people get energized like, oh, now we're actually putting in stuff for week 1 and probably also for week 2, if we're being honest. But because we don't get to rely on our own eyes for the most part, and we have to trust in what Morgan Scalley tells us and what Kevin McGivern tells us and what Colton Swan tells us, I want a prediction from all of you before we get any statements from those coaches or even from other players to lead the witness. All right? 877-353-0700. I do it every single year. I will do it every single year, as long as I'm sitting in this chair, because it's fun. And those of you who were correct in your predictions last year hopefully got to brag. You get to brag here on this show at least. There was an assortment of folks that when I asked this question last year, who is going to be the breakout star of the 2025 football season, there were a handful of you who said it's going to be John Henry Daly. You tweeted it at me. You texted it to me. 877-353-0700 or at Real OC Sports. I want to know who your breakout stars are this year. Offensive and defensive. If you think there's just going to be one, give me that person, whoever it is. And the caveat is that it cannot be someone who's an incoming transfer who had big production elsewhere. So we spent a lot of time yesterday and the day before talking about the wide receiver room, the wide receiver talent. Pagan and Scholes and people of that ilk are not breakout stars at the University of Utah. As incoming transfers, we know what they're capable of. John Henry Daly was an incoming transfer 2 seasons back, right, at the University of Utah, but he didn't have big production at BYU before he got to the University of Utah. He didn't have big production in his first year in a Utes uniform. And then obviously last year he exploded onto the scene and ended up being your best and, in a lot of ways, most important defensive player. Who is that going to be this year? Before you get the little tidbits, the breadcrumbs from Morgan Scalley and the rest of the coaches and even the other players, I want your opinion. I want your prediction. 877-353-0700. Somebody who you think is going to be a breakout star for the University of Utah this year. My preference is you give me someone on the offensive side of the ball, someone on the defensive side of the ball. And if you're wondering, hey, why is he doing this on a Wednesday instead of on Friday or on Monday when camp starts? Well, because on Monday when camp starts, sound will be coming out. And if Morgan Scalley is asked the question, and invariably he will be, hey, who's really impressing you right now? Who's got a chance to be a star for the team this year that maybe we don't know about yet? And he gives you that name. You're just going to adopt that name and so that you're correct, so that you're right, so that you get your prediction on point. I want your prediction without anybody giving you or feeding you that information. 877-353-0700 or at Real OC Sports on the Twitter. Now, the caveats beyond just, hey, you can't be someone who had big numbers last year elsewhere. I think the caveat is even if you started games last year, right, you probably didn't score more than a touchdown, maybe two. You didn't have more than 1.5 sacks. Although, if I set the threshold that low, then a lot of people are going to say, like, Lance Holtzclaw is your breakout star. And honestly, this is crazy, like, Lance Holtzclaw could be a breakout star. He's someone we know of. He's someone we feel like we know because we've heard a lot from him. But as him as a football player, him as a productive member of the team, him as a stat stuffer, that's not what he's been so far. So I think if you want to put that name in, I would accept it. You can't say Jackson Benny. His breakout year was last year, all right? And he would have been one of the big breakout stars. He was one of the big breakout stars. He would have been maybe the breakout star had it not been for John Henry Daly doing what John Henry Daly did. I think you got a lot of possibilities on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to disqualify somebody like Larry Simmons. He was too productive last year. Not in terms of volume, but in terms of production. 877-353-0700. Text us in. And you can call us. Radio in general seems to have gotten away from calling, but Ryan up in O-Town, shout out Ogden, wants to weigh in. Ryan, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing, buddy?
Doing awesome. I'm very excited that you called in. I'm happy to hear from you.
I'm glad you let me through. I predict that Morgan Scalley is going to go undefeated. I've been waiting for him to take over the reins. I think it's been a long time coming. I appreciate Coach Witt. I mean, he's a great coach and everything. He gave us all them great years, but I believe in Scalley. He's gonna. This the way he coached in that bowl game. I just think that Utah is going to be really, really good.
Your belief is in year one as a head coach with this schedule, Morgan Scalley goes undefeated in his opening campaign.
Yep, I do. They have a soft schedule. I mean, BYU we get at home, so I mean they should be able to pull that off. I don't think Scalley wants to lose to BYU at home his first year out.
Nobody does. Nobody ever wants to lose to BYU anywhere. Unfortunately, you got to play the game. I love the phone call. I love the bold prediction. Ryan, I hope everyone in Ogden feels as strongly as you do. Thank you for the phone call. And look, we've talked about this. He is correct. It is a friendly schedule. Idaho, Arkansas, Utah State, at Iowa State. There are a lot of people. We had Brett Cianci on yesterday. There are a lot of people who think that Utah's road games, with the exception of the final two, are layups, right? On the road at Iowa State, new coaching staff, something like 70 new players on that roster. Every productive guy from Iowa State transferred. At Colorado, those might be two of the three bottom teams in the league this year. I probably give Deion Sanders more credit than most people do. I think a healthy version of him might be a little bit better of a coach this year. We'll see. They got some issues personnel-wise, though. So at Colorado, right, don't fall asleep in that one, and you're probably okay. At Cincinnati, they lost the best player on their team, who now doesn't play anywhere. And they lost the two great wide receivers that they had. They lost the great linebacker that they had. But they still have some athletes. I still think if you could beat them as badly as you did last year, you could beat them even worse this year. At Arizona, at TCU scare me, right? Those are two incredibly athletic teams. Arizona's got the most experienced quarterback in the Big 12 Conference as far as a returner goes. And I think Brett Brennan's a great coach. Brent Brennan has established himself as a really good coach who can do more with less. Last year, he had the growing pains thing that you kind of expect. TCU, the week after that, not an easy out ever. TCU's never an easy game. TCU might be the fastest team in the Big 12 this year. You finish at you finish at home against West Virginia. Look, I love Ryan's boldness. I do not anticipate Morgan Scalley going undefeated this year, but if you do, I hope I'm wrong and you're right. And to stick with the conversation we're having today, if Morgan Scalley coaches this team to an undefeated season in his first year, then he is the breakout star of the season. He is the breakout star of all of college football. If the Utes go undefeated in a regular season, that means they're in a Big 12 championship game. That means even if they lose that Big 12 championship game, they've still got a really, really good shot of being in the college football playoff. Because if you go undefeated through a regular season, even with a perceived soft schedule, you're a Power 4 team with an undefeated slate. You're a top 4 or 5 team in the country heading into championship weekend. And then even if you lost to BYU or to Texas Tech or to whatever surprise team is there opposite you in a Big 12 championship game, as long as it's a close game, you might still have a case. If Morgan Scalley goes undefeated in the regular season and then drags a team into the college football playoff in his first year as a head coach, does something, accomplishes something that even his predecessor was not able to do in 21 years as the head man, that some of the Lane Kiffin, these guys that make 3 times as much as Morgan Scalley as a head coach have not been able to do the same thing that would accomplish or that would represent. I love the optimism. I don't share it to that extent, but I am optimistic. And I do think the more I look at this roster, the more I examine the potential of this team, the more I think this Utah football season might be a heck of a lot of fun. I do expect growing pains somewhere. I expect a toe to be stubbed along the way somehow. And it doesn't disqualify anyone from being a great player or Morgan for being an awesome coach. It's just football. It's just college football especially. 877-353-0700. The breakout star of this year's season would be fill in the blank. Jake says, I second Scalley as the breakout star. It's going to work. Undefeated is crazy. He says 10-2. 10-2 is still one of the best performances for a first-year head coach in the history of power football. If you could pull that off, wow. Derek on the text line says, offense, breakout star Daniel Bray, defense, Cash Dillon. Daniel Bray is the guy for me. Offensively, we saw flashes of it. Last year, what we saw from Daniel Bray was a sneak preview. It was a tease. It was the Odyssey trailer that got you in your back to the movie theater for the first time in 3 years. Daniel Bray is like borderline. He's almost too productive to call this a breakout season. We got 2 callers in the same day. 877-353-0700. Get on the trade, people. This is a call-in show now. Shane in West Jordan. Shout out to the Jaguars. What's up, Shane?
Yes, it's a miracle I'm calling. It's kind of shocking, but my star, my breakout is the offensive line.
Oh!
They don't have to be perfect. I'm not going to say we're going to go undefeated like the previous caller by any means, but they don't have to be perfect. We have the tools in place. We just need to make some tweaks. We have enough offensive talent where the offensive line just has to be above average. We've never had like 2 first-rounders in the past. Not that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct.
They just need to be good enough, and we will be in the playoff conversation for sure. Not necessarily undefeated, but we'll be in the playoff conversation. We don't have to be phenomenal because we have enough tools. Just tweak a few things, work off of last year. We figured it out. We have our offensive prowess. We have the plan. Just keep that going, make some tweaks. You don't have to do a whole lot much else in this case.
Look, I love the idea. Again, we're talking about, we have one caller who says, thank you for the phone call, Shane. Shout out to West Jordan as well. Ogden and West Jordan represented here on the show. Keep it coming in, 877-353-0700. If the offensive line, like he just said, is above average, well, we think, the belief is you've got above average wide receiver room, maybe for the first time in a decade or more. You've got an above average running back room. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think Wayshawn Parker is above average. I think his numbers say that he is above average. I think he's well above average. I think that the Thunder and Lightning thing, as I was about to rant about Daniel Bray when we got the call, I think you have an opportunity to have that perfect change of pace type back also. Love what we're seeing with that possibility. So I think the quarterback room is far, far above average. And I don't suffer from just a bias because we feel like we know Dev a little bit. We got him into the studio a bunch of times last year to have conversations. He's a great dude. He's a guy that displays the kind of grit and toughness and lack of complaint that you want from Utah football players. He made zero excuses last year. Even he was playing with dual sports hernias and a busted up ankle. He just went out there and did things, and he took the bullets when people were criticizing him, and he didn't blame it on anybody else. So I think that as your starter is incredible. The fact that you also have Bird Ficklin, who could be a starter at 100 schools or more in college football right now. That is not an exaggeration, by the way. Think of that. Bird Ficklin, if you put him on any of like 100 rosters around college football, you take any of the top 25, 30 quarterbacks, maybe top 35 quarterbacks, they want to keep their guy. The schools that person is playing at, they want to keep their guy. Anyone else would be happy to have Bird Ficklin. And we got him at Utah, who's got a top 15, top 20 type quarterback already in front of him. So if all of those things are true and all of those people are above average, and then the offensive line is even slightly above average, now we're talking about a really good offense and a pretty easy schedule, and now a big – you guys are getting me fired up. You said we have another call, James Peterson. It is Mike from Harriman. Okay. He's got a different kind of breakout. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for calling in.
Mine's more of a breakout concern. All this offense is great, but we actually got run on like I've never seen us get run on in years last year. And if we dodged some bullets, and what's your thoughts on stopping the run?
So I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that we like conveniently set aside and forget. Okay. Now there's two ways to think about this. One, the really, really bad run defense happened after John Henry Daly got hurt. Those final games, it was abysmal, right? He was more important in run support than I think a lot of people give him credit for. I think also you lost a couple of young players, a couple of young transfers. Jonah Lea'ea is someone that we all got excited about. He was not particularly stout against the run. And I think that the transfer portal guys that you brought in, the Jai Moyes and the Sam Sulas and some of these other big body individuals, I think were designed exactly for that, or were courted exactly for that. I think that there was an acknowledgement from Luther Ellis and from Morgan Scalley and from Colton Swan, like, hey, we have to be stouter up the middle, up front. I also think your safeties last year had some really big tackling issues. Some of that is because of injury and rotation going through. I don't like to pile on the Teo Johnson thing because everyone knows I've been hypercritical of him at times. I think that was an issue. I think this year, this defense, this scheme is not actually designed for your defensive line to get a bunch of plays and tackles. They're block eaters. They gobble up space, right? It's supposed to free up linebackers, and even linebackers in this scheme are not really supposed to be as productive as some other places when it comes to piling on tackles. There's a significant amount of reps in this Utah football defense where your job as a linebacker is actually to take the block on, the lead blocker on, with the correct shoulder so that the cut from the running back, so that the traffic directs that person into the clutches of your safeties. And that means your safeties have to be really good tacklers. And that's where I'm excited about Rabbit Evans being back this year. I'm excited about a healthier version of Nate Ritchie. I'm excited about all of that for Utah football because, man, that is a really good shout. That's a good acknowledgement that there was some issues with the tackling and the rush defense, especially last year. And as much as we love some of the guys that are now matriculated on and moved on from the program, there were issues like Lander Barton, my dog, was a home run or strikeout type guy, right? He just was. He was either going to make a big play or he was going to be nowhere to be found. The pedestrian, boring type linebacker of, like a Jared Norris. That's what I think Trey Reynolds is. And I say that as a compliment. It sounds like it's an insult. I say it as a compliment. The Cody Bartons of the world, right? Remember when it was Cody Barton and Chase Hansen? And everyone was always like waiting for Chase Hansen to make an interception or to blitz through with a big hit on a sack or to force a fumble. And then you looked at the actual gameplay and you were like, you know what? Cody Barton had 13 tackles in that game. He's just where he's supposed to be all the time. I think that's what Trey Reynolds is going to be this year. I think Jonnu Hall is going to be more of a disruptor, and I think Trey Reynolds is going to be the guy, the Robin to the Batman, all right? The Captain America to the Thor, if you want to make it a Marvel instead of a DC thing. And it's not as sexy, it's not as spectacular, it's not as impressive sometimes, but it's equally important. It's a great shout all the way from Harriman. Hello to all you Harriman folks. You didn't even exist as a community when I was young, and now you're like a thriving metropolis out there. So we love you. 877-353-0700. We're talking about the breakout stars. And by the way, with that point being made of like who's going to be, is the run defense going to be better this year? Imagine if Pupu Sepulona or Lucas Samsula or any of these defensive tackles, Carson Kaufusi, ends up being as disruptive, the king of knockback, like we've had in the past, where you're a Steve Fifita, you're a Star Lotulele, or even when you're not making the play, you're bundling up offensive linemen in their own backfield, and the tackle goes to somebody else, but the play is made by you. Now we're talking about a breakout star on the defensive line. Everybody on this defensive line is eligible for breakout star status. It's the good and the bad of everything that happened this past year, right? You don't want to bring back the exact same thing if the exact same thing was not effective. Pad level was an issue for Jonah Le'ea, who's an awesome player, who's going to be a great player for somebody else now. But Luther Ellis and company, Colton Swan and company, that middle especially, they've got to figure it out. And tackling. This has been something that one game per year in the final 4 years of Kyle Whittingham's tenure, at least, final 5, maybe 6 years of Kyle Whittingham's tenure, as they tried to strike this perfect balance between injury prevention and physicality, they would screw that balance up. One game every single year. Invariably. A few years back, it was that Florida game in the swamp, Cam Rising, all these guys, you're just like, heck yeah, going down to the swamp, going to beat an SEC team and put some respect on the name of the Utah Utes. And what lost you that game? It was tackling. It was missed tackles. Some of that is because you had young guys starting. Some of it was because you went through camp and you didn't tackle full speed because you felt like, oh, man, we have established starters at all these positions and we don't want anybody hurt. We don't want to risk anything in camp. Football, unfortunately, is a risky game. The guys that we know who have played at the highest level, every time we talk about this exact thing, what do they say? They loathe the idea of careful practice. We had Stevenson Sylvester, one of the great linebackers in this program, a guy who went on to great success, a healthy NFL career. And I said, man, how do you make sure that this team gets to the season or gets through the season healthy? And what did he say? Go full speed. Whether the drill calls for it, or more importantly, whether you're trying to loaf or you're trying to protect or you have to, when contact is a thing, you're more likely to get hurt if there's a disparity between how hard you're going and how hard the other guy's going. If he's going 80% and I'm going 40%, he's going 80 and I'm going 60, he's going to hurt me. If I'm going 80 and he's going 50, I'm going to hurt him, right? So when you hear coaches talk about, oh yeah, we're going to do thud today, there are some guys who thud at 100%. Thud means we're just not going to the ground. We're going to shells, right? We're going to do shoulder pads and helmets. We're going to run full speed. We're going to hit each other hard. And I'm not going to keep running my feet through to try to take you down. I'm not going to hit you at your waist. I'm going to hit you in your ribs. Morgan Scalley knows this. Morgan Scalley, my strong belief is he's going to conduct his practices accordingly. 877-353-0700. That's a show record, and I'm very excited about it. 3 calls in the first segment. We have no guest in our next segment, so we're going to keep coming with your reactions to today's question. Offensive breakout star, defensive breakout star of this upcoming Utah football season. I want your predictions. We will log them away. We will write them down. And when we're 11 games in and 12 games in and headed to a conference championship game because you said Daniel Bray was going to be great and Daniel Bray's got 15 touchdowns for this team, we're going to give you something because you got it right. It's probably going to be James Peterson bonus points, they're totally worthless in your daily life. But on this show, they are the currency of choice.
Absolutely. And Ryan and Ogden, when we're 12 games in and the Utes still haven't lost, we're gonna be like, Ryan, we thought you were crazy, but it turns out you were absolutely right. How great is that? He'll get like 1 million James Peterson bonus points if they go undefeated in Morgan Scalley's first year and he saw it coming. Like, absolutely, you get all of them.
We're gonna do this. If you predict something like that, and he did, he went out there, he put his name on the air, he told people where he lives, and he said, we're going undefeated. And you are correct. You're guest hosting the show with me one day, at least for a segment. We're going to bring you into the studio. You're going to sit down, and I'm going to sit here and how did you know? Why did you know? All right? 877-353-0700.
What can you tell me about my future, too, by the way, Ryan?
Exactly.
That's what we're asking him, if that's the case.
Apparently, we need to get your number for the Powerball. Like, I want you to tell us all about the future. You need to be a betting handicapper or something. 877-353-0700. I want your breakout star on offense. I want your breakout star on defense. And for a couple people already, that breakout star for the upcoming Utah football season is the head coach himself. There are people who believe Morgan Scalley will be the talked-about guy because of what he's able to do with this Utah football program. And you know what? If there's a silver lining to the devastating nature of Kyle Whittingham's departure, it's that if Utah football can have the season we think they're capable of, Morgan will get the credit for it. If the ideal fairy tale scenario that all of us dreamed of had happened, where Kyle Whittingham quietly marches into retirement, every assistant coach that Morgan wants to keep stays, every player that Morgan wants to keep stays, and then he wins a championship the next year or the first 3 years, basically, part of that credit is going to go to who? People are going to say, wow, Morgan Scalley did a great job, but he didn't have to do much because he was just continuing what had already started with Kyle Whittingham. the hidden benefit of the bridges being burnt is that whatever happens with Utah football now is Morgan Scalley. It's because of Morgan Scalley. 877-353-0700. Your breakout stars. We'll take more of your reactions next. I'd love to hear more phone calls. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Eight seven seven 353 Breakout star, offensively and defensively. Let me know who that is for this Utah football season. This is my last live show before camp starts on Monday, so I don't want anyone being led by the witness, right? That's actually not the right way to say that either. I don't want anyone being influenced by the comments of Morgan Scalley or anyone of his coaching staff, or even like Devin Dampier saying, oh my gosh, Mana Carvalho is going to be our best receiver this year. Then all of a sudden people are going to be, it's Mana. Mana's the breakout star. All right. You're not allowed to call breakout star someone who was a breakout star last year, someone who was highly productive last year. Even if they were at a different school last year, they can't be breakout stars for the Utes this year. Someone trolled me on the text line and said, it's Larry Simmons and Jackson Benny. That was like 5 seconds after I said Larry Simmons had slightly too much production to even call him a breakout star, I think. Jackson Benny was obviously a breakout star of last year. Because remember, you came into camp last year not talking about or thinking about Jackson Benny, and then Jackson Benny ended up being a two-way player on the team.
Yeah, so media days last year, Smith Snowden and Lander Barton told us, yeah, we're going to play some offense this year.
Yes.
Remember that? And Witt said, yeah, we're going to have some guys playing both sides this year. We had no idea till camp that Jackson Benny was a third guy that was going to play both sides. We're like, how about we chewed on that for about a month. We're like, Smith Snowden and Lander Barton, could they be good offensive players? And then all of a sudden we get into camp and they're like, oh, Jackson Benny is going to be on the offense too. Like, wait, what?
I'll have to go back and research. I think Jackson Benny actually ended up playing more snaps than both of those guys on offense, if I'm not mistaken.
He might have. It seemed like Lander played quite a bit.
Lander ended up playing a lot, but maybe it goes Lander, then Jack. He played more than Smith. I'm almost positive.
Smith barely. He got some handoffs against UCLA, and then he barely played offense the rest of the year. There were some injuries that played into that too.
Kate on the text line says, took the words right out of my mouth. Trey Reynolds is going to be what we need in the defense this year. Not a lot of flash, but lots of consistency with occasional huge plays. It's going to be a weird year, I believe, where our offense is going to do better than our defense. We need a couple of breakout guys on defense to be real contenders come the playoffs. That was last year, too. The offense was better than the defense for Utah football last year, right? Because you were really good against the pass. You were quality pass rush. You were not stellar against the run last year. You were average against the run. And when we see Utah be average against the run, we're like, that is well below average, because we're accustomed to, we have become familiar with so many years of Utah football being like top 10 in the nation against the rush. And so when you're outside of that, it's uncomfortable. It gives people an icky feeling. You're just like, ugh. Like the Kansas game, the Kansas State game. You're like, what is going on here?
Also, you mentioned the Kansas State game. The numbers are skewed heavily by one, like, nightmarishly bad game, too. Which, Kansas, you're right. A couple weeks later, was that the next week, whatever, they weren't great against the run against Kansas either, but they were much better than they were against Kansas State. So hopefully that was just a horrible one-off. And, reminder to everybody, they end up coming back to win that game, so kind of comes out in the wash a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, all that really matters is did you win, but there's the matter of saying, hey, does this look like Utah football? Are we comfortable with this kind of football? And there are more sustainable ways of winning in college football, especially. Like, you go back to when Colorado had Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, right? They won games. I don't think there was a person on planet Earth that thought that was a great college football team, right? Because it was like, okay, well, as soon as they go up against someone who is very scheme sound or actually has the kind of athletes to limit a little bit of what they're doing with these wide receivers and with Travis Hunter, they're going to lose that game. They had no physicality, zero.
C Alamo Bowl, BYU.
Right?
They blew the doors off of that Colorado team.
It was one of those things. I mean, and Jay Hill, if you go back and you listen to what Jay Hill had to say the weeks leading up to that bowl game, Jay Hill was like, he was being respectful, but Jay Hill was like, these guys actually suck. We're going to kill them. Like, you can hear him in his interviews smiling through his description of what that matchup is going to be. Right? And that's no disrespect to Colorado. It's just there's limitations to a certain kind of football, which is why when you talk to Morgan Scalley and you talk to Kevin McGivern, they're like, yeah, we're going to open things up a little bit more this year. And everyone's like, oh, sweet, yes, 80% passing. And then they're like, no, it's going to be a nice even 50-50 split, and we're going to play complementary football where our passing game opens up our run game and vice versa. We're going to pound the ball until people have to respect us in the box, and then we're going to take the top off, and that's what the best teams in the country do, right? There were a lot of years, may he rest in peace, where Mike Leach had the most proficient, efficient, productive passing offenses that you could find. Very, 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 very rarely did you think that team actually had a shot of winning anything meaningful. And that happened when he was at Texas Tech. That happened when he was at Washington State. It just wasn't – there's a certain thing. Like, remember when Hawaii with Colt Brennan demolished everyone, scored more points than a basketball team on their way to a Sugar Bowl? It was the Sugar Bowl, right?
I think so, against Georgia.
Against Georgia. And then they go up against Georgia, and it looked like a varsity team against a JV team.
Yeah, they looked like they were playing at a lower level than Georgia all year. Absolutely.
And it was just like, oh, man. Like, there's some styles of football that are more sustainable. Being a great run defense is that. That travels. That's sustainable. That's something that makes Georgia good every year, that makes Notre Dame good every year, that makes Utah good every year. And when you're back to average on that front, there's going to be games you lose because of it. There are games where Utah almost had to like pick and choose whether or not they were going to be elite on passing defense or rushing defense, because they had to adjust scheme. They had to walk a guy down into the box to take away the run. They couldn't play the base like against BYU. You weren't effective just playing your base defense in a quarter and a half of that game, and it ended up killing you, right? Texas Tech, the backup comes in, and your game plan was that you were going to have to do this. You weren't going to have to contain a rushing quarterback. The adjustments, you weren't able to make them. Your players weren't able to make them, whatever, and it cost you a game. The margin for error on that kind of stuff is razor thin. But I'm glad we had people call in. I'm glad we had people texting in and acknowledging that there are some things, as I'm asking you who the breakout stars are, people are saying your breakout star is the guy who can solve this problem for you.
By the way, OC, total tangent here, but our guy Alec in Vineyard, who was giving us the sauna updates and grievances, he texted that he's got updates for us. Like, Alec, you need to give us a call, my guy.
Alec, you can call anytime, dog.
We may not do an official airing of grievances today. We may not have time for it, but you go ahead and give us a call. We'll take your sauna update, inappropriate behavior in saunas. Some of the just gold. So Alec and Vineyard, give us a call.
Offense, Daniel Bray. Defense, Cash Dillon for breakout stars. Can I tell you how great that would be for this football team if Daniel Bray was a breakout star, and I'm saying like a 10-plus touchdown breakout star.
Combined on the ground and through the air, because he's the multifaceted running back guy.
10 touchdowns for Daniel Bray wins you an extra 2 games this year. Cash Dillon, he's the most productive returning sack man, but he didn't have enough production last year that he was a star, right? He was a rotational player last year.
Yeah, he absolutely counts. What we say, 3.5 sacks last year? He's a breakout star candidate.
If he can make that happen for this team, you're over the moon, because now you've got at least one half of your pass rush is formidable, is scary, is problematic. That's really what you had last year, right?
And by the way, that's what most really good teams have, whether it's NFL or college football. Very rarely do you have like the Colts teams that I grew up loving with Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney.
It's ridiculous.
Like that is the exception. Usually it's one really good pass rusher that's getting all your sacks, and then it's by committee on the other side.
And if you can do that, if you have – and look, if it's Cash Dillon, wonderful. If it's Lance Holtzclaw, wonderful. If it's Paul Fitzgerald, wonderful. It doesn't matter who it is. If one guy on that defensive front is an elite pass rusher, I don't care if it's Jai Moy, who are like, that's a 6-foot-tall defensive tackle. He's not supposed to be a great pass rusher. I don't care if it's him. If you have one person who the other team now has to scheme against in order to keep their quarterback upright, it opens up so many opportunities for Colton Swan in his first year as a defensive coordinator, right? Because if I have to slide protection toward Cash Dillon, or I have to chip Cash Dillon with a running back or with a tight end before he can get out into his route, that opens up blitz opportunities for other players. That makes it easier for me to hide things that I'm trying to do. If that tight end or that running back has to chip him, it means he's not going to get out to the nickel as the nickel is trying to blitz. I mean, there's all of these things that open up because of elite pressure from one player. If you can get that, if your breakout star on this defense is a sack man, that is almost ideal in today's college football world. If it's somebody who pulls down like 6 interceptions, I'll take that also, because interceptions are as impactful a play as can happen in all of college football. But the reason I lean more towards a sack man is because you have the opportunity for turnovers there. The sack fumble is probably my favorite play in all of football. College, pro, little league, whatever. You want to talk about a momentum swing? You see your quarterback get ragdolled, the ball goes flying, and then you've got the ball loose, bouncing around. Some big fat guy rumbles over, picks it up, takes it into the house, or even if he only takes it like 8 yards, stands up, celebrates too hard, has to go over to the bench and sit down with the oxygen mask because he spent too much energy celebrating. Now you've deflated the offense. You've handed the ball back to your offense on a short field. Hopefully you turn that into points, and momentum is now firmly in your grasp or has been stolen away from the other team.
Well, yeah, and you make a great point about the impact that one great sack man, as we're calling it today, sack leader, can have. I feel like this fan base has been spoiled by many years where he had a couple. I mean, think about Nate Orchard's record-breaking season. OC, he had Hunter Dimmick on the other side of that. Like that was a nightmarish thing, but it is an exception there, and I think it's easy to forget just what you were just breaking down there, the impact that just one guy who gets double-digit sacks can have, even if you have no other guys get close to it. It's a bunch of guys. The rest of the guys get 3 or 4. There's 4 or 5 guys with that many, and one guy with 10 to 12. Like that ends up being an incredible pass rush. That's the impact that one guy with double-digit sacks can have. So that's really all you can ask for and really need to ask for. I think I agree with most people that I'm looking at Cash Dillon. I'm also kind of looking at Lance Holtzclaw to see if he can be that guy. If one of those two guys, maybe someone else we're not even thinking of, can do that, that would be incredible for Utah this year.
I think Ethan Day is not being talked about enough.
Ethan Day is a good one, yeah.
Mostly because I like his mustache in his team picture. Ethan Day, respect to you because, I think you're going to be a great player for this team. It looks like he's wearing a fake costume mustache in his, because he's got a baby face feature wise, and then he's got just a caterpillar across that top lip. He looks like a 16-year-old that put on a fake mustache. His face does not look old enough to even grow a mustache.
It's very. He just keeps it very clean cut. The rest of his face there. He's looking very Top Gun Maverick.
The reason I put his name out there is because he started 13 games last year. He played every game, right? And again, this is lower level, but as a defensive end, he had 48 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, fumble recovery, 4.5 sacks. Those 13 games, that level of experience, even if it is at a slightly lower level, I think becomes invaluable when you're trying to be an every down player at a new spot. Cash Dillon did not start 13 games. Lance Holtzclaw did not start 13 games. Those guys played a lot, but being someone at a lesser school and relied on a little bit more, I think has maybe set him up for some success. Paul Fitzgerald, as a healthy player, is a total wild card here. Because if you go back and you watch what he was able to do at Utah State a couple of seasons ago, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be awesome. And then injury stopped him from being awesome. Sometimes injuries, you're never the same. Sometimes injuries are just like a temporary annoyance. But the team can't wait for anybody, right? So everything moved on without Paul Fitzgerald. And if I'm him, I'm like, I probably have a massive chip on my shoulder because injury took me out of the conversation that I probably feel like I firmly belonged in. I'm starting to get excited about the rotation you're going to be able to have with these sack men. I'm going to call them that until somebody corrects me.
Makes
me so.
For sure. Sack men it is.
The men of Sack Lake City.
On the Sean O'Connell show. They are sack men or the men of Sack Lake City. Absolutely. One thing we got to be careful of, though. Remember, was it going into that ill-fated 2024 season? Maybe it was the year before when the coaching staff in fall camp was like, we got a rotation of 7 players here.
That made me so mad.
And injuries.
And then they ended up playing 3 of them.
Yeah, injuries were a big reason why. Connor O'Toole, unfortunately, that was the story of his career at Utah. He was one of those guys that the coaching staff was talking up, and so that's something else we got to guard against a little bit here. Is like, yes, potential. If nothing bad happens, the potential is could have a great pass rush rotation here. Various things go wrong. You could end up having a bunch of just average guys or worse. Hopefully that's not the case, though.
All right, we got to take another break here. More of your reaction if you want to keep texting us, 877-353-0700. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. Oh, by the way, at the top of hour number 3, we're going to celebrate the Utah Talons Championship in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. Bree Ellis, Georgina Korick, and Jadalyn Alchin all going to join us in hour number 2. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. It's maybe one of my favorite questions to ask every year, and I'm asking it now before Morgan Scalley's comments or Colton Swan's comments or Kevin McGivern's comments or Devin Dampier's or John Hall's or whoever's comments can skew your opinion of who the breakout stars of this coming season are going to be. Give me your prediction now. Offensive star, defensive star for the University of Utah. You didn't talk about last year. Maybe we didn't know the name last year. This year's breakout star. We got a couple interesting tweets in as well. And I like this one from Andy. I don't know if he counts, but I hope it's Nate Johnson. It'd be cool to see him have a wonderful year. Absolutely, Nate Johnson can be a breakout star, even though we've known him for 5 years. The reason is because we've had that flash from Nate Johnson. He has elite speed. He is possessed of the number one most important skill in college athletics, and especially in college football. He is a burner. He can run. There was a lot of time spent in his career not knowing what position he should play, not knowing where he should be on the field, and not knowing which field he should be on. Do I belong at Utah? Should I be playing quarterback? If I go to Vanderbilt, can I play quarterback there? If I'm at Vanderbilt and I'm not real happy here and they want me to move to this position or they want me to do this, or can I be a punt returner? Can I be just a wide receiver? There are guys like this. You could probably find one or more on every roster in college football where it's not necessarily a fault of their own, where it's like, hey, you were brought up. Nate Johnson is a good example of, if you are anywhere near the strongest, anywhere near the biggest, anywhere near the fastest in Little League football, you're probably the quarterback for your football team. And because you're a quarterback in Little League, you end up being the quarterback for your high school football team in a lot of cases, right? And then because you're the quarterback and you're used to touching the ball every single play and being the most impactful guy on the field, that's what you want to do at the next level. That's why Chase Hansen wanted to be a quarterback in college football, not a safety. And not a linebacker eventually, right? Because quarterback, that's the show, man. And so you can't begrudge Nate Johnson and everyone around him and the coaches who recruited him from thinking like, all right, if that guy with that speed can dial every other skill set in, having him touch the ball every single play is a wonderful thing. Didn't have the right arm for it, didn't have the right mind for it, didn't have the right whatever else for it. And so you get stuck in this weird place. Nate Johnson was stuck in that weird place at 2 different schools. And then he came back to Utah, and I think there was an acceptance of, this is what's best for me and what's best for the team, to utilize my one elite skill in a way that is more helpful. But he has yet to be overly productive as a wide receiver. I would love to see that happen for him this year. Coach Martin on the tweet line also said Larry Simmons is going to be a huge factor. Kyrie Scholes is going to be those guys. Neither of them, especially Kyrie Scholes, they don't qualify as breakout stars because he was a breakout star at San Jose State. The reward for him being a breakout is now he's at a Power 4 institution. Now he's at the University of Utah. Now he's a guy that is getting real NIL money. All right, we got to take a break. Keep the reactions coming in, 877-353-0700. Love to hear from you. Noah Benny and Cyrus Polu just came in on the text line. Not Jackson Benny, Noah Benny and Cyrus Polu. That would be awesome. You got a great tight end and Cyrus Polu as a linebacker. I could see it happening. I wonder how much run he's actually going to get, because Lance Reynolds and John Hall are going to be your primary guys. I'd like to see Cyrus get plenty. We're going to index heavily on the Utah Talons coming off of their first championship as the Utah Talons, their second championship in a row in AUSL. Bree Ellis, Georgina Korick, Jadalyn Alshin, all going to join us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Bree Ellis is up first. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We now have another professional team in the state of Utah who has won a league championship. It happened for RSL in 2009. It happened for the Utah Talons in 2026. Bree Ellis, infielder, joins us now on the Sean O'Connell Show to talk about a championship run in the Talons' first year up at the Dump Geek. Bree, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate you giving us a little bit of time. It's a few days old now, the news, right? You guys won this championship over the weekend. Has it really set in for you that you guys are now back-to-back champions in AUSL?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it felt like we kind of had it all year. I think we were number one the entire time, and it was, getting close to the end, and the competition is just so good. But at the end of the day, I felt like there was never really a moment where we questioned if we were going to do it or not. We just had it the whole time.
So you get the news after kind of a barnstorming season last year, right? This league is launching, and hey, you guys are going to be the Utah franchise now. What awareness did you have of the state of Utah? Like, what sense did you have that Salt Lake may or may not be a good fit for you, for the team, et cetera?
So last year, when we weren't necessarily the Utah Talons, we did get to play here for about a week. So I think we got 4 or 5 games in here at our soon-to-be home field, and I thought it was spectacular. I mean, the views, we play at the University of Utah right now, and the views of that stadium, it's just mountains everywhere, which I'm from Houston, Texas. So I'm totally not used to some scenery like we have here. But I mean, overall, the atmosphere, the people here, they really do love sports overall. But I was shocked kind of at how many people loved softball or were just so happy to have another sports team that they were willing to learn and get to know us. But I'm stoked that we got Salt Lake City, by far the best weather out of all the markets, best people, best food, best everything. I'm just absolutely love it here and so happy to be here.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but, how does it work contract-wise and things like that? It is a fledgling league. Everything's new. So when you're a now successful 2-time champion with the Utah Talons, do you know that you get to be a Utah Talon next year, or is it kind of a wait and see?
So, like you said, it is new. We're on our second year. I think right now, basically everyone is either on a 1-year or 2-year contract. And because it is so new and that the professional softball leagues in the past haven't really been able to get on their feet, they're using like a tier system for salary pay. So I think it's like 1 through 5. I don't know, one of them being the best, obviously, but there's a certain amount of players in each group tier. And I think the rookie contract is the lowest, obviously. And then I'm not sure what it gets all the way up to. Hopefully, maybe I'll get to find out soon. Yeah, we're on tier bank salaries.
Let's get Bree Ellis to that max level AUSL. Let's go, Talons. If she's going to take the time and come on this show, we're going to campaign for that, Bree. Bree Ellis is our guest here, talking Talons softball championship. And, we had Coach Malone on a couple of times, Coach Ball Malone on, and we've had a couple of your teammates on. And with the new league, with the startup league, there's kind of like dual duties. You have to be a great player, obviously, but then you're an ambassador for the league, an ambassador for the game. I guess by extension, in this case, an ambassador for women's professional sports, which are really getting some support and all that now. And some people probably like that. Some people are probably like, just let me be a softball player. I don't want to have to do interviews and all that kind of stuff. Where do you fall on the spectrum? Do you enjoy sort of evangelizing and spreading the gospel of pro softball while you're also trying to win games?
Yeah, I totally get it. I think that I kind of fell into the higher on the scale position for that. So I do get pulled for a lot of interviews and stuff. I was a pretty big name in college. I won National Player of the Year last year. And so I also do well with the audience on social media, and I pull a good group of people. So they love for me to be an ambassador, like you said. Now, some days if I have a bad game, it's really like the last thing I want to do. But like you said, we got to do it because we are, business people. At the end of the day, it is a business, and we have to find a way to keep pushing it while it's hot and just drive it out to new audiences.
Probably 80% of what we talk about on this show, maybe not quite 80, but like at least 50, 60% of what we talk about is college sports. Here in Utah, we're still very much a college sports town. University of Utah, where you guys play, football season coming, as you're aware. BYU is huge here, right? And it's been fascinating to watch the evolution of college sports. And you were a player at Auburn, and then you obviously won Player of the Year at Arkansas, and you have like these different stops on your journey before becoming a professional. In a lot of ways, the college game is a professional game now to a slightly lesser extent. Do you feel like those changes in college softball and in college sports in general have prepared people like you more to be professional athletes eventually?
Absolutely. I think the whole NIL and getting paid based off of not necessarily your performance, but almost. Like, you can't technically be like, hey, I'm going to pay you X amount of money if you hit X amount of home runs this year, because then that's technically being a professional athlete. But you can obviously pick out the best of the best players and give them a, $1-2 million deal. They love to find ways, through the boosters and such. I'm sure y'all are very familiar with that. But yeah, understanding like, look, you're not all going to get an equal pay. You're not going to have, like I said, we do have the tier salaries, but obviously we can't just rely on that. Like, we get endorsed, we get sponsorships, we have stuff we do in the off season, stuff like that. And so knowing that we have to work our butts off and make ourselves stand out as players in order to get more money and get better pay, and bring overall awareness to the sport in general is huge. And I do think that college prepared me for that, because I was well aware of what it was going to take coming into pro softball, what it was going to take to, get a good enough salary to where I don't necessarily need a second job like some people do.
So now, successful season, championship season. You can't really go up from here, but I know every athlete is always trying to improve. So as you've digested the year that just happened and you head into an off season, what's one thing you really want to improve on for next year, where we hope to see you three-peat with the Talons?
Yeah, I would love to improve on my power numbers. From last year, I had a pretty kind of low season, and then to this year, it like doubled, tripled, quadrupled my numbers. But I still feel like there's more left in the tank. And my job on the team as a power hitter is to hit extra base hits and home runs. And I feel like I got a lot of extra base hits in, but I would love to get some more home runs under my belt. So just working on being on time and freeing up my mind in the box to allow me to get my 100% swing off on every pitch, that'll kind of take care of itself, and the home runs will come. So, yeah.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Georgina Korick is going to join us next. What's something I should ask her about that it'll throw her off? She'll be like, "How did you know that?"
Oof. Okay. So she plays softball basically year round. She plays in Japan. She plays in Australia. I don't know if she played in Mexico this year. And then she also plays for the Great Britain national team. And she's from Florida, like doesn't have a British accent at all. You would never guess that her parents are from, I think, London. So like, I don't know, something along the lines of Great Britain. She would be like, where is that coming from?
That is
but yeah, it's kind
perfect.
of random.
That's exactly what I was looking for. You're the best. Thank you for giving us that little tidbit. Thanks for joining us on the show. Obviously, congrats on all the success, and we hope to see you back in a Talons uniform next year.
Yeah, of course. So great talking with you.
That's Bree Ellis, championship infielder for the Utah Talons. And we roll right from an infielder conversation to one with Utah Talons pitcher Georgina Korick, who joins us now. Georgina, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great, thank you. How are you guys?
I'm doing all right. We just had a conversation with Bree Ellis, and I'm going to start with the same question I asked her right off the top. Champions, over the weekend, you win this championship. You've had a few days to digest it. Has it settled in? Give me a sense of your feelings right now, the accomplishment of taking down a league championship, the first time Utah has its own professional team.
Oh gosh, I don't know what Bree had to say. She usually is a better wordsmith than I am. It still kind of feels dreamlike. It's one of those things where like the season was really, really fast paced. I know the fans had insane accessibility to us as a team. If you wanted to tune in on TV, I think there was an AUSL game on every single day from the start of season. So for us as the athletes, it kind of felt like we just like kept rolling and we didn't really stop. So I still keep kind of like waking up in a little bit of a panic, worrying if Coach Lisa is going to call me for a practice or if I'm starting today. It hasn't really set in yet that we've won the whole thing and that I get to have a little bit of downtime.
What's your favorite pitch? What's your best pitch?
Oh, gosh. I think if you watched any of our stuff, you know I'm a changeup guy. In college, I was all about the rise. Everybody in this league, I'm sure we've seen some of Bree's swings. She can hit that changeup very, very far, or that rise ball very far. So a lot of my strength, I would say, is the ability to change speeds and put a changeup anywhere that I want it.
So a lot of people that are listening to this show probably played baseball growing up. I played baseball growing up. And softball is awesome. The most fascinating thing about it, for me, is the pitching, is the variance of pitches. A rise ball effectively doesn't exist in baseball, right? And so it's just like it's so fascinating. And when you're in baseball, right, a lot of times they don't let you throw breaking balls till you get to a certain age. They don't want you to mess up your arm. And then you do invariably mess up your arm anyway, and you got to have Tommy John surgery before you become a pro. And it's all this like craziness. Walk me through like that process in softball. Is it the same thing where when you're young, you're throwing pretty basic stuff and you add more to your repertoire as you get a little bit older? Is there a ubiquitous Tommy John type surgery that a lot of softball pitchers have to get?
I think actually, surprisingly, the injury that softball pitchers have to worry about the most is our lower body injuries. We get a lot of, I personally had a meniscus tear. We get a lot of ACLs, MCLs. You get the trifecta, the terrible all three. I think for us, because baseball is so top heavy, you get a little bit more strain and wear and tear on the shoulder and on the arm. For softball, a lot of us start from the ground. I know myself, I've done a lot of collegiate coaching. I've done a lot of youth coaching. I'm very big on, I won't teach you another pitch until I feel really strong on your fastball mechanics, because that's going to be your basis for everything that you do. And then I'm going to try and build off of that. But if I don't feel confident in your ability to use your legs, keep them underneath you, come off the mound correctly, and get your arm in the right kind of arm path and arm slots that I like, I don't feel comfortable usually teaching a lot of pitches. But if you've ever like tuned in and watched any of the softball and from the pitching side of things, there are so many amazing ways to throw. And if you were watching a championship game, you would have watched 5 pitchers throw, and all 5 of them had pretty strong stylistic differences across the board. So pitching for me is really interesting, because even though my job is to make the ball go up, down, left, and right, all of us do it a little bit differently. And I think that's what separates us at kind of the professional level, is taking that and knowing that what our strength is what our strength is, and being able to lean hard into that. Because I definitely didn't even start running breaking pitches until I was 14, I would want to say, and I started pitching when I was around 10.
Georgina Korick is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah Talons pitcher coming off a championship season. First season, obviously, that the Talons were resident here in Utah at the University of Utah, the Dumke Family Stadium. Georgina, tell me what that was like for you. I don't know if you had a lot of awareness or had been to Utah a bunch before joining this team, but it seems like the community did a good job of embracing all of you and supporting throughout the season.
Oh, my God. I couldn't have asked for a better crowd. I know we got a little bit of a teaser about how amazing Utah was last year when we were on a bit more of a traveling schedule.
I'm from Florida. I'm looking out on the water right now. It's pretty flat. We've got a little bit of storms or whatever. But I had never, ever, ever seen mountains the way that I'd seen them in Utah. I thought it was incredible that you're sitting on the field and you can see the like beautiful mountains behind right field. And as you're traveling around, just the entire kind of city and the entire campus being built into this really gorgeous mountain range was incredible. The people from Utah were amazing. I joined about halfway through the season, coming in off of my Japanese Diamond League experience. But I mean, I was welcomed in like I was one of them. You know, I couldn't have been more thankful for the crowds that we had and the location that it was. It's definitely a pitcher's park too. The air is a little bit thinner there. It's hard to get a ball out. So I was very, very partial to Utah, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I could not have chosen a better place for us to call home.
Can we talk about your international duties as well? Because Bree just mentioned this to us. I was like, give me something I need to ask Georgina about. And she was like, she plays softball all year round. She plays all over the world. You don't like an off season? You don't want to give your arm and your legs a rest ever? What's the deal?
Goodness, no. If I ever stopped going, I don't know what would happen. I think I'd forget how to pitch entirely. I loved. I obviously tuned in at the last second for your call, and I got to hear Bree's like wiki how of what I do. But it's really cool. I've been playing internationally for a long time. Both my parents were born in the UK, raised in the UK. I was born there, and then I think I believe it was 2013 when I first joined the Great Britain national team, and I've played for them ever since. So ever since I was a wee little tyke, I have been playing overseas, taking the summers and going playing for my national team over there. And then once I graduated from college, the Japanese Diamond League was kind of the creme de la creme of professional softball. AU was just kind of getting its feet wet in the professional softball sphere. COVID was still a thing going on, so people weren't really sure how that was going to kind of manipulate the dynamic of professional softball. So when I got the opportunity to go play overseas in Japan, I took it immediately. And that season is a 7-month season. There's a spring and a fall. So I usually go and join my Japanese team the first week of March, and I stay out there until the middle of June. And then right after our All-Star Cup finishes in Chicago, I'm going to fly right back out and rejoin my Japanese team, and that will run September through maybe even November. It's a long season, and I wouldn't really change it for anything, especially as a pitcher. I mean, if I want to be a pitcher, I have to throw pitches. I can't just work in the cages or throw to a plastic dummy. I need to throw against real life batters. And that's always been something that I've 100% advocated for and believed my entire life is if you want to compete, you have to compete.
How much Japanese do you speak?
Un chotto, a little bit. It's my 3rd year there now, so a lot of it is it's kind of survival of the fittest. You either pick it up or you don't quite make it and survive out there. So a lot of my days I go out. I used to live in Tokyo. I live a little bit closer to Kyoto now. But I go out there and I try and speak to my neighbors. I try to talk to my local coffee guy in Japanese. They usually look at me a little funny because their English is better than my Japanese. But I'm not bad. I picked up a little bit.
That's incredible. Is your parents are from the UK? Is there a real? I mean, you're a member of the national team, so obviously there's some softball there. But like, when you guys came over to the United States, were your parents like, yeah, you're definitely going to be playing softball? Or is this just something that became a part of the family because of you?
I think it's definitely your parents kind of fall in love with things through you, and softball has definitely been that for me. My dad, obviously, I'm sure many of us were following the insane England run in the World Cup this year. Like he's been a football guy, he's been a soccer guy his whole life. So that was my first sport, and we tried a little bit of everything just to kind of get me out the house. And you're a little kid, you're bouncing off the walls. They just wanted me to put my energy somewhere else for goodness sake. And I think we ended up seeing a softball ad in the paper, and my dad took me to a tryout, and I loved it. He went and got me the hot pink foam bat that they used to sell at Walmart and the little foam balls. And I remember us standing out in the backyard and him throwing the balls to me and me just hitting them as far as I could imagine hitting the ball when I was that little. And he would sit in his office sometimes and he would pull up old videos on YouTube of Jenny Finch pitching or Crystal Bustos batting, and we would sit there together in his office. We would do softball homework, and he would make me sit there and watch YouTube video after YouTube video of softball because I loved it so much. So I thought it was really fun and interesting that it was a sport that he didn't really know too much about. Baseball's definitely not really a thing in the UK. Softball's a very developing sport ever since I started in 2013. We've been a little bit on the climb, but we're a small island. We're a small country. It's hard to find a lot of softball players there that aren't currently playing cricket or slow pitch. And just being able to see my parents kind of fall in love with the sport through watching me and taking me to all my lessons and my practices and everything has been really cool, because now you can't see it, but I've got like paraphernalia all on the walls, like my jerseys and any of the things that they like hang up because they are proud of it, or I've, done something cool and they like to post it on their Facebook. It's really cute, I think, to see your parents fall in love with something because they love you so much that they kind of can't get away from softball now. It's going to be in their lives forever.
Okay, last thing before I let you go, because you have that international experience and you've been over in Japan with a little bit more of an established league, is Athletes Unlimited on the right track? Is this something that you can see having a permanent foothold in American sport?
I really hope so. I grew up watching, I've name dropped them a couple times, like the Jenny Finches and the Tasha Watleys, the Kat Ostermans of the world. They played in the MPF, which was the first professional league that I knew of when I was younger. And I remember just growing up and wanting to be them so bad. I went to a Pride game. I bought the Jenny Finch glove, and I'd tossed it down to her so that she can sign it. And I remember being a little girl, and all I wanted to do was be just like them. And I think as I got older and there was a little bit of collapse for the MPF, they weren't getting the interest that they needed. They weren't getting the financial backing. I remember being in college and really just focusing on my academic career because I didn't think that softball was really going to be an opportunity for me post-graduation. And so when Athletes Unlimited kind of launched in 2019, 2020, I remember getting really, really excited because it felt like it was the start of something new, and it had some really strong backing. And then when I was drafted out of my senior year, and I went and played for them the first time, I felt like a professional. They took really good care of us. Sam Fisher was still kind of at the helm of that, and she did such a great job of kind of leading it from the athlete side. And now seeing what Kim Ng as our commissioner has been able to do, the partnership with MLB, them putting financial investment into us, in what ESPN's been able to do, us being the first ever professional softball game on television with ABC, with that's unreal in my mind. I still can't quite wrap my head around the fact of it's only been 7 years since the launch of this league, and just the investment that we have seen so far, whether you're talking about the community in Utah and how incredible they've been welcoming us as kind of a home team, or the hundreds of girls that we'll see at the end of each of our games, and we're all sitting there signing autographs. And I distinctly remember being in their shoes and looking up to somebody and being like, wow, I cannot wait to be you. So I think every single year that Athletes Unlimited has been able to continue growing and expanding into these communities and offering opportunities and visibilities for young athletes, as well as people who just enjoy the sport and enjoy the game. Not everybody who goes to an MLB game wants to be a professional baseball player, but they love watching the game. And so us offering those opportunities on both sides of the coin, I think that's been really important for AU, and it's allowed us to expand and reach audiences we haven't before. And I don't know, I'm very, very proud to be a part of it. Even if my career ends up kind of finishing while this is still on an upward climb, it'll have been really cool to have been a part of something that feels transformational for our sport.
Well, congrats on the championship. Congrats on all the other success. Thank you for the information and the time and the insight. It's really been fun to learn a little bit more, and we're on board. We're going to be trying to pump up this AUSL as much as we can. So thank you for your time.
Of course, and thank you. We'll be trying to keep winning things and make it interesting for you guys.
That's Georgina Korek, Utah Talon's pitcher. One more Talon is going to join us, and she happens to be the MVP of the championship series. Jadlyn Alchin is next. Reminder before we get to the break that the Road Home Apple Tree is live right now. You can help Utah kids start school with a little bit of extra confidence. There's 200-ish kids at the Road Home right now, and they need your help to get to back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. Your kids are going back to school, and you're probably getting them the best that you can get them. These kids deserve that too. Just because their families have fallen on hard times and are getting back on their feet with the Road Home doesn't mean the kids should have to suffer for it. So, Utah's #1 Sports Talk invites you to be a child's advocate. appletreeforkids.com, or more details at ESPN700sports.com. You can find information. You can donate there. They will take donations of clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. Let's get these kids going back to school, looking right, more importantly, feeling right, and excited to be back in school with their peers. Jadlyn Alchin next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, we're going to effort Jadlyn Alchin, Utah Talons outfielder who actually won MVP of the championship series. As, of course, the Utah Talons, they go back-to-back. Well, the Talons go back-to-back. The Utah Talons win their first championship as residents of Salt Lake City. The home field is up there at the Dumke. If you didn't get a chance to get out there this year, hopefully you can do it next year. You've got champs again. And last year, the championship rings were pretty sweet. Hopefully this year, just as good. Or twice as good. Get it? Because back-to-back championships. We might have had a little miscommunication with the timing on Jadlyn, so maybe she joins us, maybe she doesn't. We're going to start. We're going to start the daily dump. Okay, I'm going to do that. And if she can join us, great. If not, also fine. Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling gives you the daily dump every single day. A collection of stories in and around sports that just they got to make it into the show, even if we can't spend whole segments on them. All right. The truck with the duck can handle your plumbing, your drain cleaning, your excavation plumbing, your water line replacement. If you need a new furnace before the cold weather gets back, if you need a new air conditioner because you're sweltering inside the house and your old one gave out, give them a call right now. Tell them OC sent you. They're going to take great care of you. This is one of the great things. James put it in his update. This is one of the great things / terrible things that you're going to find in college football right now. So Tennessee has, like a lot of people, a lot of teams in the SEC and a lot of teams around college football, they have players that are going to every single year explore their opportunities for the NFL draft, right? They're going to go through a pre-draft process. They're going to go work out with somebody who knows. They're going to talk to an agent. Now you can have agents in college football, so at least that layer of the onion has been removed. There's a Tennessee linebacker named Arian Carter who just got handed a 2-game suspension for the NCAA because he accepted a flight paid for by an NFL agent. He was going to maybe declare for the NFL. So he signed with representation, which used to be immediately a disqualifier. You're out. You no longer have eligibility. Not the case anymore. All of these guys have agents. But because this was paid for by an NFL agent, not a registered NIL agent in NCAA football, the NCAA is like, aha, a violation. $427 for this plane ticket. $427. When you're having players on his very team paid literal millions by NIL agreements, by random boosters, by revenue share, the $427 plane ticket was deemed an impermissible benefit because of who paid for it. So that is grounds for the NCAA to suspend this young man for 2 games. He decided not to enter the NFL, and he is back with Tennessee, and he's going to play this season, but apparently he's going to miss 2 games. The NCAA initially wanted it to be a 3-game suspension. This is the guy, Arian Carter is one of the defensive players that Tennessee brought down to SEC Media Days. He's expected, obviously, to be a great player for them. If he's a guy who's flirting with the NFL, he's an above-average college football player. And he's coming off an injury this year. But, look, the NCAA, just in cases like this, just take the $427 L. It's nothing. It's the tiniest drop in the tiniest bucket. It's only an embarrassment when you try to enforce this. It only makes you look bad. There is no positive outcome for the NCAA. None.
So I was listening to, as I've mentioned it, I should get Pablo Torre needs to pay me at this point. The amount of times I mentioned his podcast. You love you some
Pablo Torre.
But he had DeMaurice Smith on the show, former NFL Players Union executive director, the head of the union there for a really long time. They were talking about the latest with the Kawhi Leonard stuff, which, by the way, come on, NBA. Let's get a resolution here. But they were talking about that, and one of the things that he brought up, a perspective that he brought up that I had not considered, that I think relates to the reasoning behind the NCAA trying to enforce a silly thing like this, is he said he brought up Bounty Gate. Remember New Orleans Saints?
Yes,
yeah.
Okay. How are they connected? Makes
right.
no intuitive sense.
Right. He said that was, yes, a terrible scandal for the players and for New Orleans Saints, in that, like, you're paying people to take people's heads off, right? To knock the snot out of them. That's a terrible player safety thing.
Okay.
But on the other side of the thing, it's also technically salary cap circumvention.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
And so he brought that up to say, we filed grievances all the time against the NFL because we were parties in the CBA. As much as it seemed like the owners were the collective bargaining agreement and we're the players, we were, as much as the owners were, parties in the CBA. So we needed to, if we weren't going to try to enforce the CBA and the owners were circumventing it, so one of those two has to always try to enforce the CBA, or we have utter chaos.
Okay.
And I think that
I'm still not connecting the dots.
Well, I
here.
think that this is the NCAA saying, yeah, this is technically something we like. Why should we care about $427? But also, we're in a state of utter chaos here. We have to try to enforce some rules. As silly as that is, maybe that's the reasoning behind them saying we got to get him with something here.
Okay.
And if $427 technically illegal flight, technically illegal benefit, which I'm not sure how it's an illegal benefit with the state of things we have now. That's all we can enforce. We're going to try to enforce that.
It's like if your house is on fire and so you put the hose on your mailbox.
Yeah.
Like, just, it's dumb.
It is really dumb. I wanted to bring up that perspective is like, hey, well, maybe that's why leagues and
I feel like
unions do try to enforce silly things all the time.
If you have to jump through that level of hoop to make it make sense, then it's by itself, it's not worth the effort.
Yeah.
So Tennessee's going to win this case, by the way. He's not going to serve a 2-game suspension, and the $427 has already been paid back to the agent because it's $427. So who cares? This next story in the Daily Dump is maybe the most relatable thing in the world for me, and it's not really a sport, right? But hiking is a sports adjacent activity. Being out in nature on a mountain, climbing things, that's sports adjacent, right? This is one of the wildest stories of frugality that you're ever going to hear. I am a notorious but proud cheapskate, okay? I don't want to pay for anything if I can avoid it. And because of that, I feel like this David Cifaldi, who we're about to talk about, is my kind of guy. So there's a place called Granite Peak up in Billings, Montana. It's like their Mount Olympus, okay? 12,800-foot mountain.
Tallest mountain in the state.
He was hiking up with a group 10 miles in to a challenging ascent, all right? He had those hiking poles. You know the ones. They look like ski poles.
Yeah.
Stumbled, fell, and tragically, very unfortunately, one of his poles pierced his torso, went through his body. Now, it went through his body kind of like on the outside of his rib cage. I mean, under the skin and the soft tissue, the muscle scraped along the rib, exited out the back.
It's like when you're play fighting with swords and you're pretending to be stabbed and you grab it with your elbow, except
it
actually did pierce you on the side of your body there.
So actually goes in. Ah, no!
Yeah.
Terrible. Impaling injuries. Blah. I don't want to even think about that. But
yeah.
So luckily, David Cifaldi is a nurse, okay, by profession.
Emergency room nurse. So like, have to deal with this kind of freak stuff on a pretty regular basis, I would say.
Probably more often than he wants to, right? And kind of knew, okay, what do I need to assess? Did this pierce my lung? Am I suffering any kind of internal damage here? Took some deep breaths and was like, okay, it hurts, but my lungs are filling up. I'm fine, right? Realized that it was an entrance and exit wound and relatively quickly deduced that this had just basically gone through his skin and then exited out of his latissimus dorsi, his lat muscle, right? So it's an internal injury that didn't touch any organs or any vitals, okay? Now remember, he's up a mountain right now. He's with a group of friends. They're all hiking. He's a nurse. Chances are if he's with people that he knows closely, maybe there's a doctor or two with him. I don't know. I didn't see that in the article. But after a little self-assessment of the severity of this injury, he decides, I don't need medevac. I'm not going to call 911. We're not going to try to radio down the mountain because I don't want to have to pay for a helicopter rescue. That's the only way you can get somebody out in a situation like that. So he's like, I'm not paying for helicopter rescue. Let's just turn around and walk back. They are 10 miles into this hike. He's now got, there's a picture of it. It's a pole sticking through his body. There's no other way to describe it. It goes in under the skin. It's under there for probably about a foot, and then it pops out on the other side.
It's like putting a needle through like felt. Like, that's what it looks like. It is so unnerving being like, I'm used to seeing something like that, but not on someone's body unless it's like a little piercing.
So this frugal badass spends the next 6.5 hours trekking back down this glacier-laden, rockfall-covered mountain. It's like Timpanogos. It's a relatively challenging hike. It's hazardous. There's places where you got to make sure you're doing okay, while he's got a pole sticking out the front and out the back of him. And he makes it. He's fine. His friends, they get to a point where, like, they realize he's not going to die. Nobody's panicking anymore. They're 6.5 hours into a hike. Apparently they're making shish kebab jokes about him. He even had the presence of mind once they got to a more crowded part of the mountain. He had some of his friends walk ahead to tell other hikers, hey, just so you know, there's like a pretty gory situation coming down. He didn't want like any kids to be traumatized by seeing this pole sticking through his body. This dude, not only is he cheap, not only does he not want to pay the insurance premiums and for medevac, he's like the most courteous injured person in the history of the world.
You know, why don't you go down and warn them I've got a freaking pole stuck in my body here.
I've been stabbed through the body, and
probably a lot. Like, the picture is it on the article is of him sitting in the clinic, the emergency room, no doubt, that he's being treated in. So he doesn't look bloody or anything, but I'm sure at that moment when he was hiking the 10 miles back, there was blood everywhere, all over his clothes. Maybe, anyway, I'm sure it was a gory sight.
Here's the thing. His friends said he didn't complain once the whole time, remained in remarkably good spirits the whole time he's walking back down the mountain. Impressive as heck. That is, I've never been more impressed with a random person in my life. Because this could go really, really bad. You're panicking, you're hyperventilating, you're causing yourself a myocardial infarction. Instead, he's just like, oof, that sucks. Let's walk back down the mountain. And he grits it out the whole way. They set up a GoFundMe for him and all that stuff. But here's the thing. He's fine. This dude is fine. He has superficial injuries, minor internal injuries, and he's going to be okay. And that is the greatest story that he and his friends get to tell for the rest of life. He's 32 years old. I don't know if he's married. I don't know if he's single. But anyone who is on that hike with him now goes to a party, a social event, goes to a bar with him or whatever. The best wingman in the world just walks up to the most beautiful lady there, just said, you want to know who the toughest guy on the planet is? He's right there. Ask him to show you the scar. Tell that person the whole story. This dude's like a superhero. You didn't want a helicopter to come rescue you? Nah. I just decided to walk back down the mountain.
Didn't it hurt? A little bit.
Yeah, it hurt a little bit, but we were cracking jokes the whole way. Oh, it must have just been quick, right? You just turn around and walk right back down the mountain? No, 6.5 hours. It was 10 miles. Superhuman, baby.
I remember doing for scouts. I remember going to Co-op Canyon and hiking to the Co-op Arch, which is about 6.5 miles each way. I remember by the time we were not even halfway on the way back, it felt like I was like struggling to stay upright. Just because how tired I was, 13 miles round trip like that. I'd never done anything like that before. I'd done plenty of hikes, but nothing like that. So I can't even imagine just being able to walk straight for 10 miles at a time, let alone having something like through your body and having to walk straight.
You know, famous in Utah, right? The 127 hours guy who had to cut his own arm off.
Yeah. Made
a movie about it. Like, that story is unbelievably impressive, but that sucks, right? Because now you don't have an arm.
Yeah.
And, like, that was, like, life-threatening, terrible, horrific, awful, right? That is, like, that movie is one of the most traumatizing movies I've ever watched in my life. This is, like, the AA version of that, where it just ends up being an awesome story without really any kind of long-term damaging effect to your life.
Yeah.
You just get the story of being like, yeah, This dude is an incredible outdoor badass. But you're fine.
Kind of superficial injuries,
You
yeah.
got a couple of scars.
'Tis a flesh wound.
Yeah, you just like, see that? That's where it went in. That's where it came out. And everyone's just like, whoa.
Here's a picture of it.
Yeah.
Check out the news article with another picture of it.
Mr. Cifaldi, I applaud you. And you saved yourself a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the best part of this.
You know what? Thank goodness he himself is an emergency room nurse, Stuart. He was able to self-assess, and thank goodness he had people with him too, obviously. He's able to, like, coach them through, like, hey, watch me, feel here as I'm doing these things. That's how, if you feel this, you know that I'm good. If you don't feel this, then I don't care how much it costs. We need to get a helicopter out here.
One thing I need a little clarification on. If you look at the article and you look at the picture, the hiking pole appears to be way longer than any hiking pole I've ever seen. It's not like a regular ski pole. It seems like he's got like XXL long hiking poles.
That's true. You can't see
either
end of it in the frame.
Very strange.
David, if you're listening, 877-353-0700, you can explain that to us. Also, Alec in Vineyard, we need that sauna update, my guy.
Let's go.
Come on now.
877-353-0700. The question of the day is, who is the breakout star this year for Utah football, offensive and defensive? Text it in 877-353-0700. Tweet it in at RealOC Sports. What's going on Sports Center, man? What is going on with Sports Center? They got people painting the Sports Center anchors now? Speed painting? This is weird. James put this in his update, but I want to tell you what it means for the Utah Mammoth. There's a new highest paid player in the NHL, and you're going to have to deal with them for the foreseeable future. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Macklin Celebrini, if you don't know him already, you're going to know him for years because he just signed an extension with the San Jose Sharks to make him the highest paid NHL player currently and ever. He is also 20 years old when he signs this deal. That is, he played most of the season as a 19-year-old, and now he's 20. He's the ripe old age of 20. 5 years, $18.8 million per year, which in the NHL is massive money. Why does this matter for you as a Utah Mammoth fan? Well, two reasons. One, because this guy is going to be a thorn in the side of every Western Conference team for the foreseeable future. He is the next great one. He is, I'm not calling him Wayne Gretzky, but he is going to be the best player in the league for several years during his career. If he's not quite there yet, he will be at some point if he was able to stay healthy. Macklin Celebrini is a freak. When the Anaheim Ducks offered Leo Carlsson $18 million a year, it looked like, oh my gosh, they're resetting the market. And then Connor Bedard signed for like $15 million a year, and you're like, oh, wait, maybe he didn't reset the market. But in California, they did. San Jose Sharks are paying $18.8 million per year. A maximum NHL salary is $20.8, so he's just below the maximum. No one is making the maximum right now. But, man, 20 years old, and you've already signed a league-leading deal like this, and now you're expected to deliver on it, which I think he will. Why does it matter more for you Utah Mammoth fans? Because, goodness gracious, Bill Armstrong, give the man a trophy right now. He got Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther and Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and all of these core important players to your franchise signing for less than $12 million per year average annual value. Those are going to be they already are. They're going to be hefty discount deals. These are all long-term deals. It's going to be looked at when Macklin Celebrini is making $20 million a year and your best players, 4 of your 5 best players, are making half that. Everyone in the league is going to be like, goodness gracious, how did you do this? How did you get these guys to agree to these long-term extensions for less than their worth? Because they all are going to play above their worth on these contracts on Utah Mammoth ice. And I'm not trying to put any of them in the same category as Macklin Celebrini. He, at 19 years old, is scoring more points than your best players are at 30. But still, the top guys in the NHL, the top guys for each franchise now, a lot of them are making a lot more than the Mammoth are paying their top players. And I say that in a complimentary fashion because this is a salary cap league, and you've got to give yourself some roster flexibility any chance you can. We're going to head into hour 3 here in just 1 second. I want to remind you, if you're looking for something to do later today or over the weekend, maybe you're fancying a round of golf, but having a hard time getting a tee time, or your favorite in-valley or down in, Thanksgiving Point area, maybe those are a little bit too expensive and you just don't want to deal with the hassle and the traffic and all that stuff. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to hop on I-80. You're going to head west all the way out to Tooele, and you're going to go to the Stansbury Park Golf Course. If you're playing on a weekday, it's going to cost you $45 for a round of 18. If you're playing on a weekend, it only goes up to $50 for a round of 18. Pace of play, not an issue. It's not crowded out there. The traffic is a lot easier to deal with on I-80 than it is on I-15 in both directions. Got great restaurants around the course, so you can grab a little bit of Tooele County's finest. And you're not paying the exorbitant fees I already mentioned. It's $45 on weekdays or $50 on weekends. Great rates, gorgeous greens, minutes away. Get yourself to Stansbury Park Golf Course. You can book a tee time now at stansburypark.gov/golf course. stansburypark.gov/golf golf course. Brett Siegel is going to join us at the top. He's an NBA insider. What are his thoughts on this remade Utah Jazz roster? LeBron James going to Philadelphia. We'll talk all things NBA with Brett Siegel in 3 minutes. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Jam-packed hour number 3 here on a Wednesday. Brett Siegel's going to join us to talk a little NBA. Connor Oniki, who is the Utah Royals GM, for some soccer talk, brought to you by our friends over at Beer Bar. And then we will finish the show with Jade Linalchin, who we got our wires crossed a little bit on the timing of that conversation earlier in the show. Utah Talons outfielder. Maybe we're going to get her to close out the show. So we're going to try. The NBA had things kind of on hold a little bit, holding the breath, figuring out what's going to happen once LeBron James makes his decision. And, of course, LeBron James, 22-time All-Star, 42 years old, going to Philadelphia. it throws the whole NBA orbit out of whack a little bit, right? Everything gets a little off kilter when you're talking about a player of this magnitude. So now that everyone knows where he's going and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is joining and all that, like now the rest of the league gets to figure out what's going on. The league gets to start announcing schedules and television slots and all that kind of stuff. But that is the gravity of LeBron James. And it is the one thing that, as optimistic as we are about what the Utah Jazz are going to be moving forward, it is one thing that I don't think we will ever truly understand or have. I think that it's going to be really difficult, nigh impossible, for the Utah Jazz to ever be that much of a factor or have a player who's that much of a factor on the rest of the league's decisions. It feels like it just isn't possible. Even Carl and John weren't that way. But anyways, as promised, we welcome Brett Siegel from Clutch Points, NBA Insider, to join us and talk a little NBA. Brett, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me today.
Yeah, thanks for giving us some time. Hindsight's always 20/20. Did you think that Philadelphia was the place LeBron James was going to end up?
It was always an option. It was kind of one of those that when you talked with people around the league, especially at Summer League, they always got brought up. It was 4 teams. It was Cleveland, Miami, Golden State, and Philly. But Philly was always the last one people had mentioned. It just kind of throw in there like, yeah, they're still in. He's got relationships around the board. Tyrese Maxey played with Joel Embiid on Team USA. He has obviously the relationship with Mike Gainsey and then Bob Myers as well, who played a heavy factor in this between the respect that Rich Paul and LeBron both have for Bob Myers, and that respect is mutual both ways. But it was never at the forefront of the conversations. It was always, is he going to go back to Cleveland or Miami, or is he going to go join Steph and Draymond and kind of ride out into the sunset with them? And so once the 76ers got Jaylen Brown, that really kind of changed the calculus here, because LeBron and everybody else is looking at this team saying, hey, they could be the best team in the East this year just with Embiid, Brown, and Maxey if they're healthy. And then you have VJ Edgecombe entering his sophomore year with the 76ers. All of a sudden, if you add LeBron James to the mix, that may make them the best team in the NBA, not just the East. And so that's ultimately what this decision was. It was one that he made to go win another championship at the end of his career, whether that's this year in year 24, whether that's next year in year 25. LeBron James envisions himself winning a championship with the Philadelphia 76ers, and it would be his 4th team that he would win a championship with. That'd be more NBA history for him, and that's just another layer of what this decision was.
I thought he was going to go to the Warriors. Not that I have any special insight. It just seemed to make sense that he and Steph would want to kind of ride off into the sunset together. Not the case. Fine. So he goes to Philadelphia. And for me, like, the Embiid health is always such a wild card with Philly that, I mean, maybe you can still win a championship if he misses half a season or whatever. Unfortunately, he's missed half of his career. Does that factor in here at all? Because LeBron James is a massive addition, even at his age. Is this insurance for Philadelphia? Even if Embiid is out, now they can play obviously a very different lineup, but they can survive an Embiid absence that maybe they wouldn't be able to had they not gotten LeBron. How do you see that being a part of this?
Well, getting Jaylen Brown and LeBron definitely helps that if Joel Embiid is still dealing with knee problems. But one of the biggest things that happened in these conversations behind the scenes was that Embiid told LeBron James that he is healthy and that he is ready to go. And we'll see what happens there, because we're talking about a guy that has played 96 games over the course of the last 3 years. It's an average of, 32 games over the last 3 seasons each year. And that's just not going to work for the 76ers. This guy needs to be on the court in order for them to be a championship level team. And we've seen it at times that when he is healthy and he's playing at that MVP level, this is a team that can make some noise in the East. Just unfortunately this past year after they beat the Celtics, he wasn't healthy for that Knicks series. They got steamrolled, and then they go out and they make these big additions. They had 2 top 15 talents in the league in LeBron James and Jaylen Brown this offseason. So significant development for the Philadelphia 76ers to have all these all-star-like players playing together. And on paper, this is a team that should be in the NBA Finals this upcoming season. Whether or not they can, well, it's going to come down to health. Not only is Joel Embiid going to be the big question mark for them, but can LeBron James stay healthy going to the East Coast and playing for the Philadelphia 76ers? Will he always be available? can Tyrese Maxey stay on the court because he dealt with some injuries last year. But again, it's all about that elephant in the room of can Joel Embiid's knee health stay to the point that he can remain on the court. And right now we just don't have an answer to that. It's been the biggest concern and one of the biggest injury storylines over the last 2 years in the league. And that's going to continue this year, especially with the spotlight fully on them.
I saw you wrote about this already, but bring it to our audience if you don't mind. What does everyone who thought they were going to get LeBron James or hoped they were going to get LeBron James do now? Because there's nobody else out on the market that is LeBron James. And if you've been preserving a roster spot and maybe some minimal salary cap space and things like that, what do you do?
So let's start with the Miami Heat, because this is a team that pretty much already made their big splash this offseason, and that was trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo before the NBA draft, getting that deal done, something that they thought was possible at the trade deadline in February. Milwaukee ultimately held off until this offseason, and those two sides come together to make this trade. So Giannis is now the featured star in Miami, next to Bam Adebayo, next to Andrew Wiggins, on a team that has high championship aspirations in the East. They're not done making moves just yet. They have 12 players under roster right now, and they still have about half of their non-taxpayer mid-level exception left. They're currently waiting to see what other talent could become available. Is Klay Thompson going to be a potential buyout option for them? Because if he does get bought out by the Mavericks, which doesn't seem like a possibility right now, the Mavericks and Klay have not talked about that buyout option yet. He has not approached them about it, and the Mavericks are strictly looking to trade him. But if he was to be bought out, Miami would be a very top suitor for him, looking to get him on the rest of their non-taxpayer mid-level exception. But this is a team that is going to be hard capped at the first apron. They have about $10 million in wiggle room left to fill 2 roster spots. Other names that have come up for them: DeMar DeRozan, Bradley Beal. But again, what are those guys going to be willing to take? Will they take minimum contracts? Are they going to want part of that mid-level exception? That's why there's currently a waiting game for Miami, because there's a pecking order of what kind of players they want to pursue, especially with Klay Thompson being at the forefront of those discussions. Staying in the East, you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're going to be getting a deal done with James Harden sometime within the next week or two. It's kind of very similar to this Draymond Green situation where they have a deal lined up. It's just a matter of when they want to agree to that, and ultimately what that money's going to be, and some stipulations about guaranteed money down the line. But James Harden will be remaining with the Cleveland Cavaliers next to Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. This core is staying together. Whether or not they can make another move to add a guy like Jonathan Kuminga in a sign-and trade by giving up either Max Strus or Dennis Schroeder, that's the big question. There's certainly a suitor for Jonathan Kuminga, but so are the Los Angeles Lakers, and that's a team that has been going after Kuminga hard. It's just up to Kuminga and his camp and where they can get the most money at this time. So that's another holdup in the free agency market there for the Cavs. And then the big question mark is the Golden State Warriors, because this is a team that has been involved for multiple stars over the course of the last year and a half, even dating back to last offseason. They've been trying to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. They've been trying to get LeBron for years. They tried to get Anthony Davis in trade talks with the Washington Wizards. There were minimal talks about Jaylen Brown at the trade deadline, and the Warriors called the Celtics again before the NBA draft to see if there was any change in interest there, but the Celtics weren't interested in doing a deal unless the Warriors were going to empty all their future draft picks. So this is a team that has Stephen Curry, and when they're fully healthy, if Jimmy Butler can come back from his ACL injury and play well, on paper, this is a team that should be in the Western Conference Championship equation. But the problem is they just have not been able to remain healthy, and there's just so many question marks about where the scoring is going to come from outside of Steph, especially since Jimmy Butler will not be available until the absolute earliest around Christmas. We don't have a definitive timeline of when he's going to be back yet, but that's just the earliest kind of timeline of where people are looking as maybe he could be back for Christmas. Maybe it would be early January or so, but they're not going to be adding another big star this offseason, something Warriors fans don't want to hear, but they have clean books past the 26-27 season. And if we know anything about Joe Lacob and the way that he handles business, he's always going to be star hunting. So they're setting themselves up to make that next move. It's just a major question mark of what that next move is going to look like down the line.
Who helped themselves most with the personnel moves? Like who had the most upward mobility comparing last year's roster to this year's roster based on the moves we've seen, even, this Philadelphia, the Miami. I mean, there's some big fish that were out there that are now playing in new spots.
Well, we definitely have to give the Philadelphia 76ers a round of applause. And Mike Gainsey, first-time president of that organization, was just hired. And to be able to make the moves that he did, not only getting LeBron James, but pulling off a trade that nobody thought was possible of dealing Paul George and 2 first-round picks to go out and get Jaylen Brown, who was in the MVP conversation this offseason. He got Anthony Simons for less than half of the taxpayer mid-level exception. He got Dean Wade on a $9 million contract from Cleveland. He came over with Mike Gainsey. So just an all-around fantastic job to build this roster from one that nobody was really looking at in the championship mix. It looked very incomplete. They didn't really have a path forward with Paul George eating up all that cap space. They move him. They add Jaylen Brown, LeBron James, Dean Wade, Anthony Simons. It's just a loaded roster that Philly has right now, and it's just championship or bust expectations for them. That's kind of what Philly's looking at, and that's why there's so much hype around them, not just because they have LeBron, but because of those other pieces. And then you can look at LeBron's former team in the Lakers, the way that they've completely altered this roster with 9 new faces so far around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. You had guys like Walker Kessler in that sign and trade, Quentin Grimes, who's going to be a really good scorer off the bench for them, Colin Sexton, another good scorer. You had Cameron Carr, who was a rookie that played really well in Summer League. And then, like we were mentioning before, if they're able to go out and add a guy like Jonathan Kuminga to fill that spot that Rui Hachimura is leaving behind, he left for the Los Angeles Clippers. But if you can get another dynamic forward, an athletic forward and wing who's a slasher and cutter on offense, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves are going to be able to find him. And maybe that is the best spot for Jonathan Kuminga to finally become what he believes he can be in this league. So really nice job by both Philly and Los Angeles. There's some other moves that you can point to throughout the league. I think one of the more underrated moves was the Hornets retaining Kobe White to be their point guard after they traded LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think that the Hornets are definitely a team to be reckoned with. They have a really good vision for their future. But just overall, this league has seen improvements for a bunch of the teams. And I think that's going to be a very exciting season. Obviously, the Spurs and Thunder are going to be at the top of the championship equation, and rightfully so. Those are the 2 best teams in the NBA, and then the defending champions in the New York Knicks. But it's really wide open. This is anybody's race to be had right now, and we'll see what happens over the course of the 26-27 season. I think it's going to be a really fun year.
What do you think the Utah Jazz could be with an overhauled roster? With it not fully overhauled, they traded away Walker Kessler. They drafted Darren Peterson, obviously. And I say overhauled because we expect to see their best players play next year, which has not been a thing as of late. So what do you think the Utah Jazz can do in terms of upward mobility?
I was definitely high on this team when they first entered free agency. I thought that was going to be a foregone conclusion of bringing Walker Kessler back, but that's just a price that they didn't want to pay. They didn't want to have this long-term money tied down where they would then have to make decisions about some of these young guys like Keontae George, like Ace Bailey when his contract's up, and now their first-round pick, Darren Peterson, when his contract's up. They wanted to have flexibility moving forward and not tie themselves down. So it does make sense from that perspective why they got rid of Walker Kessler. But losing him leaves a big hole in their front court. Obviously, they brought back Yusuf Nurkic. They do have Jaren Jackson Jr., but I just really like the idea of having all this size to go and combat the Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs, who are 2 big teams in the West. And then you look at some of these other rosters. The West is dominated by big guys, and you could go down the list with like Jokic, Rudy Gobert for the Minnesota Timberwolves being the defensive anchor that he is. You need to have size as a team, and so losing Walker Kessler, I think, is really going to hurt them early on. But I am interested to see how this guard pairing is going to work for the Jazz. I think Keontae George took that next step that the Jazz and their fans wanted to see last year, and now you add a guy like Darren Peterson who can even elevate Keontae's play more while also being a factor as a scorer next to him. I think that this duo is going to be very formidable in the Western Conference, and it's something that a lot of people aren't talking about right now. I think that the Jazz are going to take a step forward this year. I just don't know if it can be fully into that play-in picture and be a playoff team in the West just because of how many competitive teams are out there, but you have to be optimistic about this team's future.
Darren Peterson is like the same as with Ace Bailey last year. We came into the pre-draft process, and it was like, oh, he's not going to work out in Salt Lake. He's not going to do the flirtation with the Utah Jazz, and then you can read into things. You can infer whatever you want based on that. I think we learned our lesson last year a little bit with Ace Bailey, who ended up being a really awesome player for this team, great young talent that we expect to develop even more. Did not seem to have any issue with ending up here in Salt Lake City, and then there was that same cycle of speculation with Darren Peterson that hopefully will also be a big nothing burger. But there's an insecurity we have here in Salt Lake City about kind of the place that this city and this community has among NBA players and where they want to be. And everyone's got a podcast now, and they're always like, oh, what's the worst road trip? Oh, it's Salt Lake City. Oh, it's Oklahoma City. Oh, it's whatever. How much does that matter these days, where these guys are making the money that they're making and they can live wherever they want in the off season? And I guess when they have an option to go wherever they want in free agency, I guess it could become an issue here. But for these young players, is Salt Lake City a place where you can come and thrive?
I haven't ever heard from any of these young guys that have been drafted by the Jazz that they don't like being there. They always talk highly of the area. They talk highly of the organization and everybody that's involved in it, from the ages to ownership. So it's a really well-run organization. Salt Lake City is a beautiful place to be. And we even saw with Walker Kessler. He said multiple times he did not want to leave Salt Lake City, but it just came down to the price for him. And ultimately, the Jazz did agree to that sign and trade. They got a slew of assets back, and it was kind of an offer that they couldn't really turn down. But in Darren Peterson's case, this is a guy that's entering the NBA with a chip on his shoulder. He fully believed that he should have been the number one overall pick. And the Jazz fans are going to love seeing that, because every single night he's going to be bringing fire, and he's going to be looking to prove all his doubters wrong, especially even after last year with how his freshman season at Kansas played out, where so many people were criticizing him for missing games, even though he was dealing with those cramping issues and the health concerns. Now he's had a full summer to rest up. He looked really good in Summer League. I talked with him a little bit behind the scenes in the tunnel, and pretty much every answer that I got from him is that he's just determined to prove everybody wrong. And I feel like that really fits the mantra of what the Jazz have built with Will Hardy as their coach. It's just a team that wants a chance, and they want to prove that they're a team that can stand with the big dogs in the Western Conference. And I think that we're going to see that this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, and they're definitely going to improve from that 22 win mark during the 26-27 season.
When it's all said and done, what's the resolution of the salary cap circumvention accusations in the Kawhi Leonard situation?
So we'll start with the circumvention. I assume you're talking about Gary Trent, correct?
I'm talking about the Clippers and the accusation that Kawhi Leonard was given extra money outside of his NBA salary as a way of kind of keeping him in LA.
Okay, got it. So with Kawhi Leonard, that investigation seems to be wrapping up at this time. Adam Silver, in his press conference at Summer League, at the Board of Governors press conference, he told all of us that they could theoretically end the investigation and put everything to a stop now. But the problem is the investigative firm wouldn't have sufficient findings. So the 9-10 months that have been spent kind of going through all this, it would be for a waste. And Adam Silver doesn't want that to happen. He wants to see this through, and he wants results, whether they find something that Kawhi and the Clippers did wrong, whether it's nothing and everybody can move on from this and put it behind them. But Adam Silver wants a conclusion. He said that he wants this done this summer. And I do expect that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have some type of answer of what's going to happen here, whether it's going to be fines, whether it's going to be a Kawhi Leonard type suspension. But this trade will be going through. It's just the holdup right now is that the Raptors and the Clippers mutually agreed to not finalize yet until a decision is made, because let's say Kawhi Leonard is going to be suspended for 15 or 20 games, and that's the worst case scenario for Toronto. Maybe this trade gets altered where a draft pick is then either protected or it goes back to Toronto and the Clippers don't get as much. That's kind of why there's this holdup right now and why it hasn't been fully finalized yet. But it will be going through. Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick have already been with the Los Angeles Clippers and their training staff. They're working out with them in Las Vegas. Kawhi Leonard has been with Toronto, and he's been up there in Canada with them. So this is a trade that is going through. As far as the cap circumvention, I mean, I even mentioned Gary Trent Jr. That's another thing that the league is looking into, where they're going to be hard cracking down on these types of deals that are made. And if a player takes a discount, the NBA is going to look into that. If a player gets more money than they should have, like Gary Trent going from a minimum deal and now he's going to be making, I think it's $15 or $16 million per year, they're looking into that, because was that a deal that was agreed upon a year ago when he originally took a minimum contract to help the Bucks with their cap situation. So the NBA takes these very seriously. They're going to investigate pretty much any type of deals that happen like this, and they're going to really look to, I don't want to say punish the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, but they want to get it right. They don't want this to kind of stand out and be a blueprint for other players to then get paid on the side by taking discounts for their team to help them build a championship contender. They want parity in this league, and they want the vision to be clear to everybody that there's no wrongdoing going on behind the scenes. And that's why Adam Silver and the NBA has taken their time with this investigation. They're letting everything play out.
Felt like the San Antonio Spurs were a little ahead of schedule this year, made it all the way to the NBA Finals, of course. There were some questions about how clutch Victor Wembanyama came up down the stretch and things like that. It's easy to forget because of how dominant he is, how young he is also. But the San Antonio Spurs, I imagine, are going to be a big problem for everybody for a lot of years. How long do you think it takes before they get all the way over the hump? Is that a team that's ready to win a championship even this year, potentially?
They are. I think that within the next 2 to 3 years, the Spurs are going to be winning their first championship. It could even happen this year. Maybe they get past the Thunder again, and they use their championship experience from a year ago of being in the NBA Finals to overcome that hump. But there's several things that factor into their first Finals appearance. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox did not have a good series, and I'm one that was very critical of it and pointing out certain things that he just did not play well against the Knicks. And yeah, he was injured. He had that high ankle sprain. Maybe that factored in a little, but that was the first time he's really been in the playoffs other than that one series that he had with the Kings. And then you could go up and down this roster. This was really their first playoff experience together. And to be able to go on the run that they did, make the NBA Finals, and have tired legs at the end, yeah, it's kind of an excuse. But every championship team through the years, and especially these young teams, had to get their first to experience it before they finally got over the hump. Every superstar talent like Victor Wembanyama, who's been labeled as a generational type talent, had to get their first and experiencing losing before actually winning a title. I mean, LeBron James did it with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He made the finals and didn't get over that hump at first until he ended up going to the Miami Heat and he won a championship there. So it's just kind of part of the learning in the building stage for Wembanyama and the Spurs. Maybe they get back to the finals this year. Maybe they don't. But regardless, if they do or don't, they're going to have that fire and that passion to want to win a championship. Victor Wembanyama's talked about it even when they lost Game 5 to the Knicks. He made it very clear that he's not going anywhere, and he's going to work even harder to make sure that he gets back to the NBA Finals. So I think that their addition of Tobias Harris is only going to help. I think that he's a very good seasoned veteran in this league, and he's a very good culture fit for their locker room, a guy that's going to hold these younger players accountable. That's something that they didn't have in the playoffs and in the NBA Finals. So I really like the Spurs. I think that they're right there with the Thunder, and we'll wait and see how this Western Conference is going to play out.
Brett, off-season is always like kind of a misnomer now with pro sports, but do you get to enjoy the rest of this NBA off-season now that the dust is settling some?
Of course. I'm thrilled to death that there's no Olympics in this August. We can put that on the back burner till 2028. There's no long restricted free agency type stuff playing out really like it was last year with Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, all waiting until training camp. Sometime in August, we're going to get a resolution to Jalen Duren and Peyton Watson, but it's not as relevant as it was last year in terms of everything that was happening with those guys. And all these trade talks and all the trades that were to be made are done at this point. I'd be kind of surprised if we're going to see another big move made. So it's just about getting those last few contracts done, and then that's it for the summer, and we can wait until training camp starts in September.
Well, it's right around the corner, and we'll look forward to it. We'll have you back on discussing when those things open up, Brett. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Take it easy.
NBA insider Brett Siegel there with great information all up and down those topics. Big thanks to him for hopping on. Connor Oniki is going to join us next. Utah Royals GM. Soccer Talk is brought to you by our friends at Beer Bar. They've got a game tonight against Washington and a special feature coming up this Sunday as well. Sunday, NWSL trying to grab a little bit of a Sunday presence in broadcasting. We'll talk about all of it with the GM of the Royals next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell show here on ESPN 700. I think Connor Onieki is going to join us, the Utah Royals general manager. Maybe not. We'll answer the phone if the phone call comes in. The question of the day on the show here, because we don't have a live show tomorrow. Well, Bill Riley is going to be hosting the show tomorrow. And then Friday, we don't have a live show. We're back on Monday when football camp starts. But I don't want your answer to come from Morgan Scalley for Monday, all right? I don't want Colton Swan telling you who the breakout defensive star on this football team is. I don't want Kevin McGivern being like, we're going to give Semi Taulonga 15 touches a game. I want you as a fan to use your predictive abilities and tell me who you think the breakout stars are on this Utah football team. 877-353-0700, offensive and defensive, if you have an opportunity to think it out. Who is going to be the breakout star for Utah's offense? Who's going to be the breakout star for Utah's defense? And these are people that did not have big years last year. The Lance Holtzclaws, who we saw little flashes from. The Daniel Brays, who we saw little flashes from. Trey Reynolds, who finally got into the starting lineup a little bit and was a rotational player, a meaningful rotational player. Who of those people is going to be a breakout star? 877-353-0700 or at Real OC Sports. Pagan can't be it. All right, he was too productive at Utah State. Scholes can't be the breakout star. He was too productive at San Jose State. Those guys I think are going to be awesome and hopefully will star for the university, but I don't consider that a breakout because we've already seen them be primary guys on a college football field, even if it's at a slightly lower level. So send in those responses. We'll give some of the reaction next after this segment. But right now, Soccer Talk brought to you by our friends over at Beer Bar, the best place for you to watch MLS soccer, NWSL soccer. They were great for World Cup soccer. We're having a little chat with Utah Royals GM Connor Onieki, who's kind enough to join us here on the show. Connor, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing all right. Game tonight against the Washington Spirit, 7 o'clock at America First Field. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, looking forward to it.
I took the family out a couple weekends ago to it was when Gotham was in town, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And, the atmosphere is great. That was not the result that the team was looking for, obviously. But when we see this moment that women's sport is having and that the WNBA getting a ton of attention and NWSL getting a ton of attention, and we just had our own Utah Talons softball team win a championship in their inaugural season here. How much talk on like a maybe not daily basis, but at least weekly basis is there in maintaining this, in not only riding this wave, but making sure that the wave continues the energy and generation of the wave? I mean, because you're carrying the load for an individual franchise, but also these leagues finding a firmer foothold in American sport. How much of that is a part of your job on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think it's a huge part of what we're doing. And I think the biggest thing is being able to see all this success and the investment that I think, the country, the world is having, but certainly the people of Utah are having in women's sports. It's just important for us to be putting a good product on the field. To your point, like it doesn't mean that we're winning every single game, but that the games that people are coming out to, they're having good experiences. So that's, cohesion across the business side, the game presentation side, and then obviously for us, bringing in the right players, the right coaching staff, the support staff to be able to come and perform. And I think for the last 2 years, we've been trying to build something, as we've re-entered the NWSL, and this season feels like we're getting the momentum that people have just been working so hard for. And the people of Utah have really shown out because of that. And I think they're continuing to, and we feel like, we have more heights to be able to reach. But for us, it's always been about how do we create an environment and an experience that people go to, and win or lose, rain or shine, they feel like I want to be a part of that and I want to be able to keep coming back. And so I think that, we had the Gotham game, 3-1 loss, but hopefully people felt like we played good soccer. It was a fun experience. They come back, and then the next week we beat Orlando Pride for the first time in the club's history, 1-0 at home, and that's a fun experience for a different reason. And so this week we have, Trinity Rodman's coming to town, Sophia Smith's coming into town on Sunday with Portland, and, these are big name stars, U.S. women's national team players that are coming to play us, and we're competing with them. We drew to both of those teams away, and now they get to come to our house in front of our fans, and for us to be able to come on and put on a show, I think is really important. So it's just about having the right things on pitch to be able to invite people to keep coming back and ride that wave, like you were saying.
Look, there's, you need your full roster to be healthy. That wasn't the case against Gotham as much as possible. Roster construction is fascinating to me in every sport. I'm a relative soccer novice, and obviously even more so in the NWSL. So the mechanisms for transfer and for, like RSL has their academy system and builds up these homegrown prospects. And then in the NWSL, as you're trying to put a championship product on the field, what are some of the mechanisms that I need to be aware of as someone who follows this kind of stuff in every sport?
Yeah, it's a great question. The NWSL, I think, really models itself pretty closely to the European market. So to your point, it's mostly transfers where we're paying cash for players to their clubs to be able to come and join us. There are certainly trades within the league, and then there are some youth mechanisms where you're basically out of college, you're a free agent, and so then we're just competing with other teams to be able to bring players in. But it's really expansive, and if you look at our team and the way that we've built it out, we have players from the Japanese national team, Slovenian national team, Mexican national team, U.S. women's national team. So we've created a pretty diverse group that plays the way that we want to play, but it's largely international transfers, intra-league moves, and then college free agency are kind of the three main ones I would say that we're using to build out our group.
Philosophically, is there any place where you are over-indexing? I mean, are you someone who's obviously heavily involved in this, who's like, we got to build the young prospect. It's got to be these college players. We got to build the roster that way. Or is it, 33% on all three main?
I think that for us right now, we're probably over-indexing on the international piece. We have a lot of international players who've been able to come in, and that's a really cool thing. Like, we have the Women's World Cup next year, and if you start following the Royals right now, you'll get to see those players playing in the World Cup. I think the way that we like to play is a very kind of build through the thirds. We like to play with the ball at our feet, and there's a lot of European, Asian teams that play in that way, and so we found being able to bring players in that can play that way, you're going to have to look internationally to be able to do that. And so it's created this really cool ecosystem for us where we have really strong American players, but then we also have, these players that have come from all around the world who are able to play the way that we want to play. And so I would say right now that's where we're at, but certainly to the future, looking to, kind of even those along. And I would say that philosophically, it's just been about how do we compete now? And then let's look to the future as, we're kind of able to establish ourselves.
Tell me about this Copa Tanawak that's happening with the Portland Thorns match.
It should be a really good turnout, and I think that we have a lot of we try to just do a lot with all of our different matches, just to be able to have themes, to be able to bring in different folks and be able to just make it a fun to the game presentation point. I think that it's just been really important for us to make sure that as much as the average Utah Royals fan is able to come through, it's really important. But we also just want to make sure that, we're also doing fun things that highlight people in our community and folks in our community who, can find ways to come and celebrate and participate with the group. And so we're really excited about that Portland game and some of the events that we have going on there.
Before I let you go, we already mentioned at kind of the top of this conversation how the women's professional athletics is getting a lot of push right now, and it's fascinating to watch. And the WNBA, I think, has been given at least the broadcasting space to kind of lead some of that charge. Mm-hmm. Basketball and soccer are very different sports. They have very different places in American culture. Your league and the WNBA are obviously very different. But is there anything that NWSL can take from what is going on with the WNBA, where like they're having these great moments? There's also some controversies. You're getting criticism. You're also getting praise. Is there anything that you can glean from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always things to be able to take. I think one of the things I really admire about the WNBA, and part of it to your point of basketball versus soccer and just the roster sizes and things like that, is just how they, in the WNBA, really highlight the individuals. and the stories of the people. And to your point, sometimes that's for good, and sometimes there's things that are rough that come along with that. But that's true of any professional sport, certainly in America. And so we understand that as we grow, and as our players' profiles grow, as our team's profile grows, that we're gonna you're gonna deal with some of those things. But I think with the WNBA, a lot of people can name players right off the top of their head that have had big impacts in the sport, big impacts in college, whatever it may be. And I think for us, just being able to tell the individual stories of the players that we have on our roster is just incredibly important, because we want people to come and support the team, but we also want them to know the players and not just know how they are on the field, but also who they are off it and their personalities and what drives them. And I think WNBA just does such a phenomenal job with that. And I think NWSL is doing a good job with that, but I always think that there's room to grow. And I think certainly if you look at our marketing work and what we're doing with the Royals, I think that, if you're watching our socials and doing things like that, you can really start to get glimpses of, who our players are as people, their personalities, and they're people we're supporting. Our players are genuinely incredible and just like the best people, such good role models for our community, for girls and boys growing up playing soccer, to be able to look to these players. I genuinely could not speak more highly of this group, and so we want to just keep highlighting them as individuals, the people that they are, and I think WNBA is doing such a good job of that.
Connor, can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today. Enjoy tonight, enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We'll looking forward to continuing to listen in and yeah, staying in touch.
That's Connor Onieki, who is the Utah Royals GM. They're in action against the Washington Spirit, 7 p.m. at America First Field. Also, Sunday, August 2nd, so this weekend, it's the Portland Thorns, and they're going to have a lowrider, live music, halftime celebration. It's going to be fun. So a little Latino theme to the Sunday night game. Excuse me, the Sunday game at America First Field. Get out there this week if you have an opportunity to do so. One last segment, James. What do we know about Jadlyn? Jadlyn is joining us. All right. We have another one of our Utah Talons championship players joining us here on the other side. We'll close out the show with Jadlyn Alchin, who was the MVP of this championship run for the Utah Talons. Sean O'Connell Show, wrapping it up next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Thursday edition of the Sean O'Connell Show will be a special edition hosted by the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. And then on Friday, you got a little bit of a highlight, some best of, an incredible weekend for all of us. Tune in on ESPN for some PFL action. I'll be out calling fights on Long Island. And then Monday, Utah football camp starts and we'll hit the ground running. Sean O'Connell Show, 11 to 2 on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Final segment of the show brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. $2,500 off if you purchase 10 windows or more. Lifetime warranty on the best replacement windows in the business. Beautify your home, increase the resale value, increase the energy efficiency, and save some money while you do it. Financing options available as well from Advanced Window Products. Tell them OC sent you. We're lucky enough to have a guest to close out the show. Don't always have that. Jadlyn Alchin joins us from the Utah Talons, the leading hitter on the team this year, the MVP of the championship series, and, of course, the Utah Talons, their first year in Utah, won it all. Jadlyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Appreciate you giving us some time. Has it sunk in yet that you guys are league champions? I mean, it happened just this past weekend, and sometimes it takes a minute to really absorb the impact.
Yeah, I think I'm still in the settling down environment right now. It's kind of crazy that it all happened. I feel like it happened so quickly, and now we kind of just dispersed and kind of go our own ways for a little bit. But it definitely was a great experience, and just being able to go back-to-back with the Talons has been something that we kind of hoped for in the beginning of the season, and then just worked our way through it and got what we wanted.
So you had a great year at the plate, but got even hotter in the championship series, 500, right, in the championship series. So to what do you attribute that? Was it like just in a groove? Did you do extra study on the pitching matchups? Because if you're hitting 500, you're well above the pace, you know?
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'd say the night before the first game, I kind of sat down, and I want to say I spent an hour and a half just going through my whole year of film of my own at-bats, and then going into the film of the pitchers that we were planning on facing in the next 2 to 3 games. So I kind of just sat there in the hotel room studying my own film, and then going into the game, I feel like I always wanted to compete for another inning, compete for another pitch. So once it was over, I was like, wait, don't we have another game tomorrow? But no, like, we won it all. So it was fun just keeping the momentum throughout the game and just building off of each other's energy too.
You had some familiarity, if I'm not mistaken, with Dumke, with your home field because of your time in the Pac-12. Is that right?
Yes. So I was able to play here previously, both at University of Washington, and I didn't get the chance to come during my UCLA year, but yeah, I've visited here a few times from University of Washington, but being in a professional setting is a whole different world, and it was just the most amazing atmosphere, and the fans showing up this year has been amazing.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting to here, because we've, for whatever reason today, we've talked a lot of professional women's sports. We've had you on. We've had a couple of your teammates on. We just had the GM of the NWSL team here in Utah. We've been talking a little WNBA, and obviously women's professional sports are finally getting some exposure, finally getting their due, finally getting a little bit more attention. And Athletes Unlimited is taking advantage of this. And you're in your second season, first year, obviously settled down at the arena here in Utah. But you've been part of this league, and you've been part of the growth of a sport that I think is trying to capture some of this moment. And I just want to get your thoughts on kind of like the responsibility of that. You got to be a good player. You got to do the first thing first and go out and get hits and catch fly balls and all that. But it seems like everyone we talk to, there's also a sort of extra homework where you got to build this thing, and you got to be an ambassador in the community, and you got to probably sign autographs in ways that maybe other players in other sports don't have to pay as much attention to. How do you view that? How are you taking it in, and what do you think the future looks like?
Yeah, I mean, the future looks bright from where we are right now, and the growth of it, and just the growth that we've had from this year to this year, or last year to this year, has been exponential. I mean, part of it is signing autographs until the last person gets the ball signed, and just staying afterwards. Sometimes we're there for maybe up to an hour, just talking through and like getting to know the fan base and seeing frequent faces like, oh, we came to the game last weekend, we'll be here again tomorrow. So just having that connection with our fans, and just we're able to build our energy off of them too when it comes down to the two strikes, like having the crowd get involved in that. And then at the end of the game, if we win, we get the crowd involved too, and we do a UCA cheer with them. So I think it definitely is, as much as we're buying into the growth of it, like we're also wanting to buy into our home and being gracious enough to allow us to be here and like allow us to continue to grow in this city has been amazing. And I think we've had great feedback from both sides, and just continuing to grow like within our community and just being involved in our community, I feel like does take us a long way. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and I enjoy every second of like the autographs afterwards and just being involved in that aspect.
So when you guys were heading into the championship series, we looked up what the rings looked like from the first championship, and those are pretty sweet hardware. It's a good-looking championship ring. Do you know anything about the design on the second? Who gets to be involved? It usually takes like months and months for those things to actually get minted and handed out. But, when you're collecting a championship ring, that's the cherry on top of the championship cake. So do you know what those rings, that process is going to look like?
Getting the rings this year, I really had no idea what it was going to look like. So getting them at Dumke was special within itself, but it was an absolute surprise to what they looked like. I know that our GM, Coach Lisa, is involved in it, and some of our coaching staff, and then we also had one of our players, Shar Palacios, get involved in the design of it. So I really don't know what it's going to look like next year, but I'm really excited for what's to come of it and what new sayings we might have in it, or what just the overall look's going to be of it.
So what's the goal for you in this off season? It's such a sprint of a season. It's so condensed, and you got a long time off as far as the AUSL goes. What do you want to improve on before next year? What's the main goal in that regard?
Yeah, thankfully I'm involved with the All-Star Cup this year, so I'll have one more month of softball until the end of August. After that, I think sticking to the training that I do have. I live close enough to UCLA, so being able to kind of be close to Coach Lisa in that aspect and just train with them, train with her individually and separately. And then, hopefully more softball. I'm looking into potentially going into the international pool, so we'll see where that leads. I still got to do some hard work on that one. So I think just enjoying the time for a little bit of no softball, but knowing like when it's time, it's go time, it's go time.
Jadlyn, congratulations on the success, on the MVP of the championship series, on such a great year, especially at the plate. And we hope we get a chance to talk to you before next season rolls around. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Jadlyn Alchin is indeed the MVP of the Utah Talons championship run, and will be collecting another ring for back-to-back Utah Talons championships. So congrats to her. Big thanks to her teammates who joined us on the show today. Okay, I've been told that Porter Larson and Craig Bowler is going to be he's hosting the drive?
That's the plan, OC.
It's amazing.
Yeah, gonna be a fun drive coming up next, and you got PFL duties to get to here, OC. So Bill Riley tomorrow.
That's right.
Should be a great end of the week here on ESPN 700.
It's going to be a fun end of the week. Bill Riley tomorrow, and then we're back Monday, rolling on Utah football camp starting. The long national nightmare is over. College football is back, baby. Weber State's already practicing. Let's go. Have a great weekend, everybody. Tune in on Saturday night for PFL action from Long Island, New York. Got a world title fight in the lightweight division. Got the return of Dakota Ditcheva, the best female fighter on the planet right now. It's going to be a fun one. We'll see you on Monday. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.